Evening all, we're back, refreshed from an international break and barely any football watched. So if you're here for any good advice, please leave now. But anyway, if you are staying, and why not? You know, there's nothing on the telly anymore, no more traitors, any of that kind of stuff. Then do stay with us three. So we're very lucky. We've got Jossy with us this evening. He's back. I'm trying to remember, Jossy, when you were last on, but I'm pretty sure it was quite early in the season this time. So how are you?
Yeah, really well. Good to be back, lads. Yeah, very well. We're glad to get back into FPL, to be honest, and looking forward to this high-paced Christmas period now because I'm sick of international breaks.
You don't like them?
No, blood to tears.
It's interesting, isn't it? Everyone has quite a different take. I think it depends on context and situation. Now, Danny probably is aware that I kind of love them because I can get to pursue my other interests, which are sort of more edifying and fruitful than football. You know, like genuinely, I put in the descriptor for this pod whether I've watched more plays than football matches during the international break. Yes, I have. I told Danny the other day, I was sat in a theatre on Sunday, right? 2 seats down from me was John Lithgow, which, if anyone knows who that is, just an absolute legend. I grew up with him, Harry and the Hendersons, all that kind of stuff. And then a couple of rows back was Michael Sheen. It was just sort of mind-blowing that this can happen. But it's just the weird stuff that can happen in London. So I don't really know anything. So Danny and Jossy are the people to talk to this evening. Danny, seen any good plays lately?
No, I haven't, I'm afraid, mate. I'm not not done anything really lately. I mean, we both had a busy week, didn't we, at work and stuff, and I feel totally scrambled. So I have no idea what to make of this pod, and I think I'm hoping that it helps us all get back into the sort of, because I have been all over the shop, and I'm trying to think about it today to get myself back in, which has helped a bit. But yeah, I appreciate Jossy coming on at very short notice to sort of give us someone to vibe off and just have a chat. Very short notice, so that's and it's like 10:30 where he is, and yeah, I thought he was about to say, I'm looking forward to this fast-paced pod for a second. I was thinking, no, you're in the wrong place there.
You've come to the wrong place. I always feel slightly sorry for Jossy when he does come on, because I always feel like we get you on during a week where everyone's interested in Liverpool assets, as you know, to kind of just because you happen to come from Liverpool. It's like, oh yeah, we'll call Jossy. So presumably you're going to tell us to triple up and to buy all of the interesting ones, the Chiesas and that sort of thing. No, probably not. But something interesting like that. I did hear, actually, by the way, just a very quick note, one thing on international football. I thought that interview with, I think it was Andy Robertson yesterday was lovely, you know, where he was kind of celebrating qualification and he was talking about his conversations with Jota and like how they could potentially be at the World Cup together or whatever it would be. I don't know. It was a lovely kind of interview, wasn't it? So that's well worth hunting down. I mean, it just popped up on timeline, but it was definitely lovely.
Yeah, and it also hits home that I think it's not something that's gone for these guys. I mean, they've lost a brother, haven't they? And I think that it is probably still does weigh on them. It's a constant memory, isn't it? So it's tough. Yeah, it was a nice little interview.
No, it was lovely. That was probably the highlight of the international break, wasn't it? You know, seeing Scotland and Ireland and so on celebrating their different forms. I actually saw immediately, by the way, transfer links of Troy Parrott to West Ham popped up on my feeds everywhere. I think we turned down. We tried to sign McTominay a couple, when he was downbeat at Man United. And now it's a shame that we went for Ward-Prowse instead. That was a bit of a nasty spin. Let me say hello to the chat. There's lots of people. Sorry, Danny, did you?
No, I was just going to quickly say, just because it's worth shouting out. Like I was at a pub quiz last night, so I actually watched, and they had the Scotland game on. So I probably wouldn't have even realised the significance of the game or that it was on because I've been so out of touch. Well, obviously, I watched the whole game and. I don't know if you guys saw the game, but it was an incredible game of football. Absolutely bonkers. Incredible atmosphere, by the way. So good from the Scots. It's great to see them back in the World Cup. That's going to be really good. But in terms of the football, they were pretty terrible, to be fair. I don't know how they won 4-2. They were completely outplayed for most of the game. and Denmark went down to 10 men. And then, I mean, it had everything. Just quickly, I mean, Scott McTominay scored an absolute worldie right at the start. I don't know if anyone saw that. What a life he has found. I mean, it's just, you just got to laugh at Scott McTominay now. I love it. I love him. And obviously, as a United fan, I'm gutted we lost him and stuff. And I said that at the time, and I was gutted at the time. But incredible worldie from him. And then, yeah, it had everything from there. It was all Denmark, and Denmark got a red card, and then it just looked like it could be a goal after goal in the last 10 minutes. It was just unbelievable. And then right at the end, Scotland scored from the halfway line when it was 3-2 up on the break. It was just mental. So, but I unfortunately missed that Robertson interview because it was all on mute in the pub quiz. So yeah, that sounds great. But yeah,
really emotional. Let's say hello to the chat, and then we're going to do, as promised, a quick last week's scores. Now, we were criticised last week for doing well. That has not been so last week. So good. Well done, everybody. You're happy now. But hello, Heather. She's listening whilst driving, concentrating hard on the road. But of course, we will keep her company. Who else we got here? Murmur, sorry, because there's a lot of R's in there. Ken, our resident Liverpool. Sorry, actually, no, Evertonian, thinking about it. So try and be nice, Jossy. I don't want any nastiness here. Ken's a good friend of ours.
My wife's an Everton fan.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They all mix, don't they? The scouts, and they all go to the games together and all that. And yeah,
it's just the same with West Ham and Millwall. It's exactly the same. Sam Trafford, he's off to the theatre himself, so it's not just me, and plenty of others here as well. Anish, our good friend Frazier, and Gareth as well. So lots of other people. But please do come in and join us for the chat. Excellent. Let's have a look at Jossy's last week then. First of all, if we can kick off. Oops, excuse that terrible alignment there. It's a bit better. So this week, game week 12, FPL Reloaded. I quite like this thumbnail this week, so congratulations to Danny. He's getting better at this every week here, I would say. Let's start with Jossy's week, though. It's incredibly small on the screen, and that's lame on my part. But I will just tell you that Jossy is actually the top scorer of the three of us, so that might shock you looking at the score there. Was it a good week way back when? Can you even remember, Jossy?
Vaguely. So I had two key decisions. Do I start to Bradkett or Vicario? And I won by a point. And yes. Did I put Croupy Jr. or Reinders ahead of each other on the bench? And I got Croupy Jr.'s 1 point, correctly guessing that he would get more minutes. Yeah, as you say, it was a pretty dour week for most. I've seen this mentioned online as well, but I've now picked up my 4th penalty miss of the season. I haven't had the 2 Bruno misses, and Semenyo and Haaland both. Last week.
Times two.
Yeah. Now, as a Liverpool fan, obviously, when they miss the first penalty and it keeps it level pegging, was actually happy about that initially. But by the time you've been beaten 3-0, you kind of think you should have just scored that pen. But again, that doesn't have a great deal of effect on the rank. I think it's Saka with 12-pointer and probably Bruno with the assist is the reason it's barely. It was a small green arrow, very small green arrow in what was a dour week. We move.
Okay, excellent. Speaking of a man who is, I can't do a good reference here. I was going to say trying not to basically fall from that picture on the screen there. But Danny, 38 this week or last week rather.
Pretty accurate this week. I mean, the good thing is about this week, isn't it? Is we can now choose. We don't actually ever have to do this again if we don't want to. In terms of last week's review, and people might be bored by watching it, but now that we've actually, because we said, didn't we can't just do a good week and then never do it again. We have to do a terrible week, and we've all had a bad week, so we don't actually have to do this again after this week. I don't think we don't want. But yeah, 38, rubbish. Been doing my best to forget about it. Not much to report that I can even think of at all. That's even worth saying. I mean, started off with a double United mid. So the first thing that happened to me in the week was obviously Bumo scoring, which was at least I was like, oh, because I felt like it could have been a truly terrible, horrific week because I really thought Saka was going to be good, and he was. obviously Gyökeres was injured and all that sort of stuff. So that was just a little bit of a cushion there. I thought, okay, that stops it from being too horrific, which is pretty much what happened. Still a rubbish week, but yeah, the United boys are okay. Palace, Sarr and Mateta should have got a hell of a lot more than they did. Semenyo missed a pen, and Jai was good, did nothing. Lacroix has been one of the most frustrating. Just to say very quickly before we move on, is Lacroix. Still good, but he's so frustrating every week when you know, because he's a wildcard 4 pick, wasn't he? And you know, because obviously wildcarded so early, and he's he also missed what would have been a 9-point goal, by the way, with a point blank header in the last minute.
Oh,
but yeah, it's just so frustrating every week when you pay 5 million for this guy, and like it's Richards walking away with the death gone, or Guehi. I mean, Guehi on that wild card. That's the other thing that's just quickly worth saying is Guehi is one of the most frustrating things ever, because on the wild card 4, obviously I started the wild card with him in to get the price rises at 4.5. By the end of my wild card in 4, it was also an international break. He'd gone up to 4.8, but such was the data, you know, after only 4 weeks and the kind of the backing of Lacroix to get the DEFCON and do all the points. Even though I'd made 0.3 on the wild card, I still went from Guehi to Lacroix on that wild card, which is probably about 20 points down at least, or maybe more. I don't want to look. It might be more than that with the amount of attacking returns he's had. So Lacroix has so much to make up for that I don't think he has time in my team to make up for it, but it's incredibly, incredibly frustrating. But yeah, we move on.
No, that's yeah. I was going to say they even look like Guehi owners even look like they're going to escape it this week, and he might well recover in time. There's just a tiny bit of me that kind of wants them to, yeah. But anyway, actually, just one quick thing on both your teams. It just reminds me as well. Personally, I'm not saying I did well last week because I didn't, but I feel like I've gotten away with a couple of things lately. Really, like Sarr and Enzo lately. As a non-owner, you know, in the last couple of fixtures, I feel like I could have been legitimately a good sort of 30 points worse off from those two fixtures. With those two players combined, they could have easily got an awful lot more. I mean, personally, especially Sarr, because he's someone who I just absolutely don't. I just hate not owning, because he's one of my guys. He's at the end of last season, you know, he's one of the people who I was like, next season, these are my top picks, and he was kind of right at the top of that list type thing. So it's quite difficult to accept. But him and Enzo, really point dodging. Anyway, very quickly, there's a bit of rumbling going on in the background, by the way. I don't know if there's a mic issue somewhere, so just have a quick check. 40 points. I won't go through the whole lot, but yeah, essentially a bit like Jossy. That sounds fine now, by the way. Saka is the one who made a bit of a difference there. So he scored 12 points, didn't captain, obviously. So that's kind of the only thing. And got the Senesi versus Anderson call marginally wrong by a point. But that was literally the only thing of note. And yeah, and Pope continues to be somewhat disappointing since bringing him in. But that's another conversation for another time. It's not a worry that I have anymore, because there are too many other fires. But I think he's fine, isn't he? As far as I'm aware, back from his concussion protocol or whatever it is. I haven't heard anything there yet, but I'm sure it's fine. Cool. Anyway, quick references to the mini league. We got a couple of new people in here the last few weeks, and just worth shouting them out. But also, I feel there's a little bit of me. I don't have favourites. It's not fair to say that, but Zach Farnell, I kind of feel like the man has been sort of cheated a few weeks. He's come in here. He's like, yeah, I'm brilliant. I'm definitely going to be top here. I'm doing really well. And then John O'Shea, he sweeps in, although he's been around viewing in the background. His second week at the top, John O'Shea at the top, FC Barcelona. And then Sean Byrne. I don't think I've seen Sean before. So he's in at number 2 with high voltage. Zach Farnell, part of the old guard, and then Robin Popplewell. So the Differubies. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure I get that right. He in at number 4. He's new to my eyes as well. And then 2 old guards, John Hilton and John Edgar, in at 5 and 6. Player of the week. I might get this wrong, by the way, every week, but it's just the high score that I can be bothered to see or look down, because you know time is of the essence. But Ricardo Brito, team name. It's a good team name, that. Ricardo.
Whoever actually got the highest score is probably fuming every week with you on this one.
74 I got it. Yeah, no. Well, what can I say? Yeah,
Nice,
what
good
can we do?
score.
But yeah, well done, and we will keep doing this. We will shut it down, in no later than about a month, I would say. So 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. Yeah, a few references from the chat there. I think some are interested in that. Oh, okay, no, it's more just new people saying hello, etc. So yeah, Brandon, first time in live for a while. Howdy, gents. Howdy back to you. We will kick off then properly. So I guess we have to start with this. Really, is a whole bunch of injuries. So we'll kind of be talking around this, but also your questions, which kind of lead on to this as well. But I suppose we have to start with just a quick sort of flag check. Jossy, how many problems have you got?
I'm holding Gabriel and Semenyo, who I'm less concerned about.
I don't think
That's not too bad.
Yeah, I don't think many of these are much of an issue really, apart from Gabriel, are they? So I don't really know Guehi's situation, but Enzo sounds like he's fine. I mean, there was a quote just shared tonight. I think I just saw it from Flapjack on Twitter, and something just said he wasn't asked directly about the injury, but said he was looking forward to the games against Barcelona and Arsenal. I don't know.
I'm not even sure he should have been flagged, to be honest. He's just had an international break at rest, hasn't he?
Yeah, it seems that way.
Got to rest him. Sorry, flag.
And Semenyo was obviously just. It was just an anniversary, not an anniversary, a proposal, wasn't it? So it was obviously a personal reason. So again, I would completely disregard all of it, although I don't know Guehi's situation apart from Gabriel. So I guess we should talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, one has to just have a quick moment to reflect on Semenyo's absence. I kind of loved this particular story because it appears, we might be wrong, maybe he's got a legitimate concern, but that he, basically ducked out early, wanted some time with his partner. So essentially, his reason for leaving the international camp was to get laid. And who can blame him? Because I think we've all been there. All had someone to impress, so no issue with that whatsoever. Yes, I've only got. Assuming that Pope's fine, it's Semenyo and Gabriel that interest me. Just a quick word before we go on further. If anyone does hear any issues with the sound, do let us know in the chat, because I had a bit of rumbling earlier, but maybe someone's just had a late dinner or something.
Yeah, just generally always appreciate just all the feedback. It was that one. It was a few weeks ago where for some reason my microphone sounded different for the whole pod, and we didn't know until afterwards. And it was a bit annoying on my part. So, but do let us know, please.
So just before we get into, because as you say, probably the most legitimate concern, or the one that really worries people or concerns people, is going to be Gabriel. We'll come to that in the questions form in just a second. But just in terms of how you read it, I mean, are you satisfied with that? Do you think you'll learn enough or any more to kind of make a judgment of that? Are you acting as though this information is, good enough to be able to kind of move on it? Because obviously he's such an important player. Is he the top scorer? Is he the second top scorer in FPL at the moment? I really should have checked that before coming on. But he's obviously comfortably the highest scoring defender. And a fixture in everyone's team. So yeah, do let us know, chat. I think he is the second top scorer.
Yeah, second
top. Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think, Jossy? Is it kind of legit enough for you to do something about it? And are you planning elsewhere already, or?
It does feel like it, because it was reported by Ornstein. As we know, I don't expect Arteta. I'd be surprised if Arteta's very forthcoming in the presser. He'll probably tell us they're still assessing him and they're hoping he'll be back soon. But I think with the pace in which the games are going to come up now, I feel like it's something we need to deal with personally. If he's not available this week, I would have liked to have parked him on the bench, to be honest. I really would have.
Especially with lots of Andersons flying around.
Yeah.
Yeah, very frustrating. Yeah, it's a good point, because a lot of people had enough sort of quality on the bench, didn't they, to kind of cover this in some way? But clearly enough an issue. Is that the way that you feel about it, Danny? Is that something that you're fairly sure that this is worth planning for?
Yeah, I mean, with me, I always just think you have to be very decisive and quite ruthless, I think, is my general approach. So obviously, we didn't want to have to sell him. I didn't want him to have to be injured. He's one of those players that's so cozy for the whole season. You've got one less decision to think about for the entire season with Gabriel in your team, which is good and bad. But when he's gone up so many price rises, and you know that it's kind of annoying. There aren't many players that you know that if you take them out, you are going to have to bring them back in, and he's one of them because he's that ridiculous. And then obviously he's going to be a lot more expensive, and that's a transfer down the line, which is effectively 4 points. Don't care how many transfers we've got. I don't buy into all that nonsense that we've got so many transfers that we need to use them. I don't think that's true at all. So it's obviously frustrating. But I think you just have to be quite ruthless. It's too tight. And when I look ahead at the games coming up for a lot of teams in general, and for various reasons, I don't think the defence looks all that solid for most people, really, outside of Arsenal. And so if you've not got him there and he's not playing, it's actually quite important, I think, that you do have someone else who is either from Arsenal or from someone else or someone with good fixtures. And so yeah, I don't think we'll get much more, but what I would at least hope, certainly, is that Arteta would go as far as to say he's not playing this weekend. He won't. Knowing him, he won't go further than that because he'll want to. He probably won't know for certain how long he's out for, and like he does because he's so annoying, he will want to keep people guessing whenever he can, and he'll look for those opportunities when it's a bigger game in a week or two or Champions League, and he can toy around with it. But I mean, so he probably just say that he misses that game, and then I'll then combine that if you get that, which is quite definitive and which definitely suggests there's something quite seriously wrong. I'll just combine that with the Ornstein thing and just assume he's going to be out for a month or two, which, as Jossy says, is a lot of games, and then I'll sell him. But I mean, it's not like he sort of massively changes. It's not like one of these players that massively changes how Arsenal are going to play. So in terms of Arteta thinking he's got to sort of keep it quiet and all that, I'm not sure. So maybe he will be a bit more transparent. But yeah, so at the moment, I'm basing it on the fact that, he's going to be out for a month or two or whatever. That's the sort of thing I'm thinking. So I'm at the moment thinking sell him.
Yeah.
I was just also thinking that with it being the North London derby, if there's any opportunity for him to keep Frank guessing about whether he's going to start, he would likely do so. So if he's able to say he's categorically out, it's probably something more long term, isn't it?
Yeah,
because I think he would try and play games with this one if he could.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, but I think that Danny's got a good point. I mean, their quality of cover now is so good. I mean, this time last year, I don't know whether it was last year, but there's been occasions, haven't there, in the last few seasons where Arsenal have been in a great position, and then these kind of situations really do affect them if someone's gone injured. It just does not instinctively feel like that this time, although he's a hugely important player. But the quality of cover is incredible, isn't it? I mean, they could actually play probably 3 or 4 players in Gabriel's position and still be fine, right? Calafiori could do a decent job there, and of course they got Mosquera, Hincapié. I'm not quite sure how to say that one. I've heard a lot of pronunciations of that this week. Saliba, obviously, and so on and so forth. So they really do have good cover there.
And I also don't think it's a defence that relies on one monster at the back like Van Dijk. It's just a well-oiled machine, isn't it? They defend well as a unit.
Jossy,
so he'll be missed.
The absolute belter of a segue. Because you talking straight about like a comparison with Liverpool and Van Dijk, and that is indeed part of the first question. No, but sorry if I cut you off there. But
no.
How would you? We have a question from our good friend FPL Easy, but there's sort of 2 or 3 questions that refer to this issue that virtually every. I think it is one of those situations where it is fair to say any serious manager probably did own Gabriel. I know there's one. In fact, Pete, I'm pretty sure our good friend Pete doesn't own Gabriel, so he's the one person who actually doesn't mind about this. I might have got that wrong. Who listens into this? But yeah, who would you prioritise over Virgil van Dijk or Szoboszlai as a transfer to bring in this week? So he would be either doing Gabriel to Virgil or Reinders to he's put Szobosz there. What are your thoughts on De Ligt as a Gabriel replacement? And then other people, that's from FPL Clark, and a few other people have mentioned things like Munoz, Saliba going down cheaper, that sort of thing. So Yeah, lots of different questions there. So I suppose let's kind of start with who are you eyeing up as replacements and how do you rate these different names that are being thrown out there? It does obviously depend on who you've got. I mean, in my case, I've already got Timber, so that's not an option that a lot of people will look at. Calafiore is obviously still kind of nursing an issue, isn't he? And I don't really trust his knees in comparison to other people. So yeah, I mean, Danny, do you want to kick us off on this one? I mean, is it? I know that a lot of people are fairly one track about their approach to how to solve this issue, but I think we really do need to give the due diligence here. So, what were your instant thoughts?
Well, my instant thoughts are looking at the Liverpool and looking at Van Dijk pretty much and the Arsenal guys. That's my first thought. So just to be kind of honest and thinking about that's where I'm going first. But that doesn't mean it's the only place I'm going to look, but it's what I need to think about first. So I suppose I'll just add that in terms of Gabriel missing for Arsenal, because a lot of people said, we have heard a lot of that, and does it make the defence worse and all this sort of stuff? And again, like we've already said it, short answer is that I don't think it really does that much necessarily. Or what we certainly know is that generally that sort of thing's overplayed, in terms of like bookies odds and what models will say is they don't shift much when any player is missing for a team because, single players don't usually make that much of a difference to any team. It makes much less of a difference than we all think. But what I will say about Gabriel is he is obviously a massive leader in the team. And like he's incredibly vocal and incredibly intense. And he's the one who you always see, it's always him that it goes to in the 70th minute, 80th minute, celebrating, tackles made. And even if it's 2-0 or 3-0, the guy's just OTT intense. It's an incredible thing to have in your team. So I think they will miss that to an extent. I mean, it might not make much of a difference because they're so good. But they are losing someone there who is almost the voice, and again, I've always said, like the embodiment of Arteta on the pitch, and that's what Arteta will be a bit gutted about. Is Gabriel is the absolute leader and the one who's just constantly instructing the defence and so on. But yeah, obviously they've got and he's the one who I suppose he did miss a bit last season, didn't he? But they were a very different team, Arsenal, last season, so it's hard to kind of judge. I know Saliba got some more, and that is interesting. Saliba did get more attacking returns when Gabriel was injured last season. However, I think that generally, that aside, I view the Gabriel injury as probably better for Timber than it is worse in terms of the fact that they lose this centre back and they lose this leader. I think his minutes were already great, but you could reasonably argue that with that incredible team that he could maybe miss one game. With Ben White's very good, and they've got all these games coming up. Whereas now I think that is even less likely because again, it's just too much to lose. So that's good for minutes for Timber. And I think that if they are going to switch it up, which I guess they probably will in terms of the set piece threat and so on, and individuals and doing certain things, I think it probably is going to. I would have thought it's more likely Timber really than Saliba that's going to. The threat's really going to go up because he's already such a threat anyway. So it's a bit of a worry not owning Timber. So that's what I'm kind of thinking about is that difference between Timber and Van Dijk at the moment. Just to stick with that first question, to think about the two and then think about which to prioritise. First of all, in terms of the two, and I'll sort of pass these general thoughts on to you before I talk about the prioritising one. But again, I mean, people have said things like, it's Arsenal and it's fixtures. I'm sorry, it's like it's Arsenal and the kind of form and the defence versus fixtures for Van Dijk. I do think that it's more than that, and that's probably really obvious, but I'm really quite, heavily thinking about, for example, DEFCON. And I say that because it sounds obvious, but it's not really something I've heard in the conversation. And that's if I think if DEFCON wasn't in the conversation, I'd be much more likely to just look for Arsenal and just look at the team who are getting clean sheets, and the evidence is there. Whereas DEFCON is a massive thing. It's kind of half a clean sheet. It's a huge opportunity for points. And Van Dijk is someone who is going to get DEFCON. Not necessarily every game, but he's generally is a DEFCON beast because of the way Liverpool play and the way Van Dijk plays. We've said this loads of times. So it's huge having that potential to have 2 extra points each game. Whereas Timber's not so far, whether that changes or not really a DEFCON guy. That's a massive thing on Van Dijk's side. So it's fixtures and DEFCON. And that's why, that's really big for me, thinking about Van Dijk as a kind of potentially just ahead. Although, yeah, I mean, whilst on that subject very quickly about Liverpool, and that's what I want to come to Jossy with as well, for example, is I'm trying to get my head around it. We're all still in that kind of correct mode of thinking of look at the fixtures, back the fixtures, etc., etc. And, Liverpool will turn it round or whatever. But they have been so bad in defence for so long. I mean, when you look at the numbers, I was just looking at an article earlier, and it's like since winning the title against Spurs, Slot's Liverpool has got 4 clean sheets in the last 22 games in all competitions. 4 clean sheets in the last 22. I think they've conceded 12 in the last 6.
Now, I would counter that, just sorry to interrupt, but I would counter that a little bit to say that quite a few of those 22 probably include the tail end of last season when we pretty much put our feet up. But
they do a little.
There's no question.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say that. You're right, Josh. It is important to say that because it is the tail end of the season, and it is true. It's true. That's worth looking at. It is all competitions as well. So I think a lot of it is this season because it's all competitions. So we've got all the league games plus the League Cup and Champions League. I mean, they're so random. They're so hard, Liverpool, to look at, isn't it? Because they clean against Real Madrid, and then they clean against Villa, and it's just so perplexing. But the numbers ultimately are for the defence are truly terrible, and they've lost so many games. I mean, even just I know that they talked about the home and away stuff as well. I can't remember the exact numbers, but they've lost something like 7 of the last 10 away games, or it might be 8 of the last 11, or something ridiculous. It's the most that the Liverpool have lost since 1998 or something in terms of league games lost in the last 7 or 8. So anyway, there is all that to consider. So I'm really stuck between those two. I think in terms of, just to say quickly, in terms of like which to prioritise, for me, for all the reasons that I've said, again, it depends on your defence, and there's loads of little contextual things that matter. A lot of people are looking at Anderson and thinking, it's fine. I mean, I'm not really sure. I don't really like Anderson this week because he got Sunderland, and Sunderland to me, I mean, we'll talk about them at some point, but they really do look a handful, Sunderland. So I'm not really that keen on playing Anderson. I mean, it's fine. It's definitely a fine fixture. It's okay. There's no problem with it. But the biggest thing in terms of that question actually is I think there's still so many question marks about the midfielders for me because there were so many good ones, so many midfielders to choose from, so many crucial weeks upcoming. Again, we'll talk about these guys. When you think about Szoboszlai, when you think about a Man City midfielder, when you're going to be facing up to the fact that they're playing Leeds at home the following week, I think it is. Whether it's Njai, who people own, or whether it's a United midfielder, there's a lot of information. I mean, United midfielders now without Sesko, what does that look like? So for me, it's quite a big week, quite a valuable week to get more information on the midfielders. Whereas I think for the most part, we've got a lot of information on the defenders. There's a much smaller pool. So I think in terms of the two, I'm leaning towards that the defender move is more important, really. And then actually, it's quite nice to get the information on the midfielder this week. So that's my sort of answer to both. But I don't know, what do you guys think about either of that?
Jossy, did you feel like you'd finished on your comments? I'm guessing not, so I should probably defer to you because it's unfair.
I don't recall where my comments were at when I left them. So, but I mean, firstly, on the comparison, I think that the key thing that sticks out to me straight away is that if what we think we know is true, Gabriel's missing for a month to 2 months. Reinders is at least a playable asset. I mean, to be honest, he's been hit and miss about whether or not he's been starting lately, but he's still a potentially playable asset. So I think Gabriel's a bigger priority to deal with. I think some of it, and we can't see this from FPL Easy, but some of it is also about your own squad makeup. If you don't replace Gabriel, who are you playing? Is it an Anderson? I was also able to play Anderson as the backup, but I'm starting to think the same. For Fulham are not. Anderson's a great DEFCON guy, and he's been getting the DEFCON pretty regularly, but they can't get a clean sheet to save their lives. And I'm not overly confident, to be honest, that they're going to get one at Sunderland. Szoboszlai, look, I know this has been said on an awful lot of other pods, but the big concern being that he's on 4 yellow cards, and look, that might not come for another month, for another 6 weeks. But he could be missing the week after you buy him. So that would put me off, to be honest. And his numbers aren't great. I mean, he is a talisman type figure for us at the moment. He plays a lot of minutes. He is more involved in the attack. He is central. He's got a great set piece on him. He will likely get some direct free kicks to have a pop at, and we've seen that he can score those. But I mean, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but his XGI is not particularly high, and there's a lot of competition in those midfield spots, and I think we'll come to it about which the Liverpool assets to go for, but I think it's really difficult, to be honest, outside of VVD. And then quickly, I suppose, wrapping up on the VVD question, there was a lot of talk about going for Van Dijk for this run of fixtures before Gabriel was injured. And I was pretty much of the mindset at that point that I was just going to let it go. Because, as you were saying, Danny, the defence isn't great. Didn't really think it was a necessary move. Now that Gabriel's out, I'm feeling like it is a smart way to go. He has the goal threat. I think the disallowed goal of last week probably brings that to the fore again in our minds. But yeah, I'm still not 100% or even 80% confident in our defence at the moment. But he does seem like a sensible route. What do you think, Rich?
Well, I think one thing I will say, I know this is probably quite apparent to everybody, but I do think that actually I can skip forward a little bit just to help with this. But we can't underestimate. I know that managers like yourself and Danny would have obviously looked into this, but let's just have a quick peek at that ticker again. And it's worth just noting, right, is that we're not a position like this. It's all about longevity, isn't it? Like, we hate replacing Gabriel because we know he's someone we were leaving in there probably, indefinitely. And the reason why someone like Van Dijk appeals so much, probably to a lot of relatively sensible people this week, is just simply there is a good opportunity if this, you're hopping on at the start of a good period of fixtures, right? And there's a good chance that you can leave that person there for indefinitely as well. It may well be that in 3 or 4 weeks' time, Timber gets an injury, or Senesi gets, or you want to move Senesi on because Bournemouth's fixtures turn, don't they? As far as I remember, after sort of 3 or 4 more weeks, they start to look a little bit more ropey anyway. And obviously, other than Burnley, it's, they got Chelsea, Man United, another fixture against Chelsea over this sort of Christmas period, that sort of thing. So having someone like Van Dijk there as someone who is going to be there for longevity, has many routes to points, yes, the limited clean sheets, etc. It does make an awful lot of sense. I think you look back to, probably like you, Jossy, actually, I think back to a week or two back, and I was planning and thinking, well, how am I going to use these? If I'm going to use any transfers, am I going to do anything after the international break? And he was already in those kind of plans. I already have Timber, etc. So I won't pretend that I'm anywhere near as happy about the prospect of owning him as I am Gabriel. Obviously, there's just no comparison between the two. They should be separated quite rightly. They almost are, by a sort of clear £1 million. I think that seems quite fair. The only thing I would say, and this will come back to, if I go back to the options that people have put to us, the longer the week's gone a little bit, I have remembered, well, I don't own Munoz, for example. And of course, lots of people do, and are probably quite comfortable with that. Yeah, you've got him, Jossy. So he's probably, if I had made a list last week of the players that I wanted in this period and couldn't probably get to, it would have been Van Dijk and Munoz. So really, I haven't thought beyond them. I'm not as happy about the prospects of someone like Calafiore as other people are. I'm very happy with Timber. He won't be going anywhere. And if anything, if Gabriel returns, I think there's a very strong likelihood that I would just stick with him, Van Dijk and Timber, and have have that expensive defense and be relative and just play elsewhere and play with the remaining slots. But sorry, Danny.
No, this is it though, Rich. I mean, I obviously don't disagree with anything you're saying, but it's completely different for you because you own Timber.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't. And I mean, you were looking at the fixtures there. Go back to the fixtures because I want you to just contrast it with the RobT for a second, because it is amazing. In terms of just trying to play devil's advocate, we probably can't see them very well there, but we saw that Liverpool were top of the fixture tickers with like Forest, then West Ham, and whatever it else was. It was like, what is it, Sunderland, and just incredible set of fixtures. And yet you can see here that. Let me get it up somewhere I can see it really quickly. I mean, for the next, there we go. So for all of those weeks, you've got Arsenal are ahead for clean sheet percentage in all of those weeks. I mean, that's the cap. That's how much it's changed.
Yeah,
Arsenal 46% to 37, 31 to 31, 46 to 45, 39 to 34, 55 to 30, 43 to 27. So every week, Arsenal have got better clean sheet odds than Liverpool, and it's just worth thinking about, because I know Van Dijk seems obvious, and I probably will go there myself because he is going to be low owned in terms of the masses, in terms of the general game, and the fixtures are there and the DEFCON's there, and it's really nice. But Liverpool, it is mad because they are struggling in many departments, and maybe they sort of. It doesn't feel like they're going to shift necessarily to kind of a defensive approach, because it feels like they've already been trying to be quite kind of conservative and in their approach, and it's not really been working. And they've got all these problems up front in terms of who to play and what they do with Wirtz, and you've got Isak sitting on the bench, and you've got Ekatike, and Salah's not doing anything, and sort of the back have been left to mop things up. And I mean, some of the other stats. It's just about the sort of plan. They don't seem to have much of a plan in so many areas because they've got these such significant things to focus on. I mean, you've got other teams. So there was another stat in the article that was about like their corners, and teams like Brentford, I don't know, and a few others. Something like 85% of their corners are in swingers. Yeah, and they've got these great set piece numbers because it's being drilled, it's being practiced, being focused on, because that's it's kind of the cherry on the cake, or it's whatever. They've got the rest of the stuff in order. Liverpool's are like 50% in swingers, 50% out swingers. Which, to be fair, I think it might be that Van Dijk does like the outswinger more. I'm not sure. I have heard that, and you do see it, sort of thing. Maybe there's some plan to that. But you see 50% to 50%, and that one of the other stats was that, like, I think Van Dijk's been first to the ball in a corner, something like 3 out of the last 57 corners. So we see this one goal that was disallowed in Champions League and stuff, but in actual fact, he's not really doing anything. They're not really doing anything from set pieces, but it's just something to consider in the sense that might not necessarily matter because they probably get a lot of corners. Van Dijk is great in the air and sort of thing, but it's important to consider the fact that they don't seemingly have an actual plan in these scenarios. They're not like other teams that are actually really drilling this stuff and practicing it in this age of set piece goals. And, no one knows how to play open play football at the moment. There is no meta of football. It's all just set plays. Liverpool don't really seem to know what they're doing in any department because of this kind of massive shift of all these new players in different positions, that they're having to try and get used to and having to try and learn what the basic structure is. So all I'm saying is it just makes me think, like I'm probably going to go there, but I feel like we need things to turn. We're sort of also betting on the fact that, okay, hopefully Liverpool will kind of turn a bit of a corner, but I'm not really sure necessarily that's going to happen. I mean, it's a separate conversation, but I don't know. Like, I'm not sure slots ever really been tested like this before. So maybe that's a separate conversation. The other thing I just want to say is yeah, you're right about Szoboszlai. I keep forgetting Szoboszlai. I keep forgetting about the 4 yellows. Keep completely forgetting about it. So it's another slight reason why it's good to wait a week, just because you never know, he might get it this week. It's another week to buy that information. I do think with Szoboszlai that of all of the sort of chaos at Liverpool and of all of the kind of bleak stuff, there are some glimmers of hope, and there's some light, and in various places, a few places. But by far the biggest one is Szoboszlai. And you mentioned the numbers, which is true, but obviously for a lot of the season he's played right back, so the numbers have taken a hit from that anyway. I think his numbers last season, they were good. His output wasn't great, to be fair, but his numbers were like 0.5 XGI, non-pen XGI involved, expected goal involvement over the season, which is good. But as I said before about Szoboszlai, it's only been about 2 or 3 weeks since I last ranted about him, but he's not actually. I think he's played 1 game in the league since then. But for me with Szoboszlai, it's that I'm sort of basing what I think he's going to do on the change that I'm seeing in him as a player. I think a lot of people are just still basing it on output. People just want to see he hasn't done the goals yet, and that's fine. That's fine. So it's not guaranteed. But what I'm seeing is he's easily been Liverpool's best player, just in football terms, for the whole season. He's the most undroppable player at the moment. He has to play in that 10 because it's too important for them. He's too important for the press, the style of play, how good he is. So the minutes are incredible. And it's just hard to see, really. A player like him, he's a very talismanic player, for country and club. He's always looking to make the killer pass, and he shoots on sight. He's great at set pieces. He is that sort of player. He's not a Verts type player that just linking the play and just knocking it here and knocking it there. He's more than that, I think. So I'm not as bothered about wanting to see the outcome, the output yet, because I expect to see it in that position, in that team, and with those fixtures. Such a ridiculous player. So I'm less bothered about that, if that makes sense. But the 4 yellows is significant and a real bit of a pain, actually. It's a bit of a pain.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'll be looking forward to that part of the conversation later in the pod because, in my position, it might be that I take the opportunity to move Njai on. It's a debate, really, because it's never a pressing issue, is it? He's one of those kind of players. But, of course, last week I only had a penny in the bank, and Szoboszlai was the only one. I've got that wrong. You pronounce it better than me. But he's the only one I could reach of the players that I'm remotely interested in. Whereas now with Gabriel injury, then obviously Sarr, etc., comes back on the table, even though it's short term. So that would be an interesting debate to have later on. I want to ask. Okay, sorry, there's a buzzing of the door, but someone else will get that. As well, just looking at this slide as well. I mean, Man City defenders is something that I didn't put on the questions, and no one has sent in questions that link to them. But obviously, I mean, actually, I think one of the solvers, not that I'm going to follow this, would suggest that I actually move, because Pope's minutes on solvers have been reduced slightly, right? And a lot of them do suggest to move to Donnarumma. So I'm just interested to see your thoughts on Man City defenders, because obviously not much talked about because they've got a dodgy fixture this week, or at least they haven't got high clean sheet odds, rather. Any interest?
Jossy?
I am interested, yeah. But I'm not sure. If I move for Van Dijk this week, then it's probably going to be tricky. I'm going to have Van Dijk, I'm going to have Munoz, I'm going to have Timber. It's probably going to be set. But oh god, that guy's name escapes you. O'Reilly, obviously, he's talk of the town at the moment. As we hit this busy period, you do worry for his minutes, but he's been a consistent starter for them. Obviously, Aït-Nouri's back now, but he's been very good. Both getting up the field and actually doing his defensive duties. So you think he probably has nailed down that spot, but nailed down in only so far as a City player ever has. But if you were to put off the Van Dijk move this week, it is very tempting from next week. So it is something that I'd considered.
Yes, you would be willing to take that risk.
It's something I've considered.
Considered in passing. Then it doesn't.
Okay, well,
sorry.
Yeah. I'd say relatively in passing.
Vardiol, I have to be honest with you. I know that he missed a game, didn't he, a little while back? But whether I assume he's back and playing every game, etc., etc. But I haven't heard it mentioned a great deal. Danny, does it float your boat at all?
Not generally, just because that's the sort of player I am. I mean, I also think it's for some people, who some people are tight on money, and they want to make certain moves, and then maybe they can't afford an Arsenal defender or a Van Dijk, and then I think it's reasonable at that point. I mean, the thing with City, the thing with O'Reilly is you just never know, do you? Obviously, Aït-Nouri's there, but although you've only got to get through a few games because Aït-Nouri then goes to AFCON. Yeah. But O'Reilly's obviously been very, very good for them. And, Pep is someone who generally, if someone's really good, they just keep playing. But it always feels quite precarious because it's like Reinders was very good. And if he finds a system that he prefers, that's the thing with Pep. It's not always about the player. It's about whether he just changes the system. And then if somebody's the fall guy, and you never know who that might be. But obviously O'Reilly's been very, very good, and he has all these attributes where he's got physical attributes. He's massive. He looks very naturally fit, and he's obviously got the confidence. I mean, did you see that interview with him after the Liverpool game? They just sort of asked him how he felt about the fact that he'd managed to like mark Salah out the game, and he was like, "Well, yeah, no, I felt all right about it, but that's what I thought was going to happen." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So this guy's not arsed at all, which is a good sign. And he wasn't even sort of big headed. He was just kind of quite logical and kind of like pragmatic about it. It was just sort of, yeah, I mean, that's what we trained for, and that's what I expected to be able to do today. So I didn't expect him to be able to get past me and sort of thing. And yeah, he's got a lot of threat. And then obviously City have got a lot of the first. I think I've not even looked because I've not really been looking into City players, but I think I heard that City have got a lot of the first kickoffs coming up. Unfortunately, with all the leaks and stuff, that might help. But so it's a reasonable gamble for anyone who wants to go there. You know, it's quite nice. And I think if I was on free hit 13, I'd probably go there as well. So I don't hate it, and then I certainly don't hate Donnarumma either, to be honest, because I think City have improved a lot in defence, and he's just an awesome shot stopper. They look much more assured at the back, don't they, at the moment than they have done. So yeah, don't mind it, really. It's just not something that I've needed to consider really.
So what I'm going to do, because in an effort to kind of move on a little bit in a minute, I'm going to ask you for your, no frills, straight answer to these first two questions that are on the screen, so these poor people can actually go away with an answer in a minute. But before I do, and I have to ask you this quickly, Danny, because I forgot that the second question was actually all about De Ligt. Manchester United defence, De Ligt. Any thoughts? Because you are the man to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just because I haven't really looked at De Ligt. I just want to quickly. I mean, I just want to have a quick look at his minutes. Maybe he's the one who's been sort of ever present. Is that why that people are asking? I guess he probably has, because I mean, it's so weird. It's so weird with Amaron. I mean, the number of changes he makes to the defense, it's so frustrating. I mean, it's another conversation, but Amorim seems to kind of he seems to be doing a lot of things right on the more meta level, on the macro level. But on the micro level, sometimes you're just like, what are you doing? Like when he ran out of substitutions the other day, what are you doing? He's like, he does his best to try and lose games for us. But he so often makes these random substitutions. And of course, he very often rotates the defense. But De Ligt seems to be relatively ever present. So that is maybe something I should think he's better than I actually did in my mind, because I think I'd have to look more into his minutes. If he looks, I mean, because we'll talk about United in a second, maybe in the same question, but their fixtures are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I'll probably talk about that in terms of the Bumo and Bruno question.
Yeah.
But, I don't like it otherwise. Sorry, just to say, otherwise I don't really like it. I mean, I've got enough United as well myself, and I don't trust our defense, but it's okay. If he's cheap, maybe there's a bit of goal threat there, and maybe United are picking up. But yeah, sorry, go on, Rich. What do you want to say first there?
No, all I was going to say, and this is a note right down the bottom, isn't it? Is there any kind of remote wind of a Semenyo injury being genuine? And I'm hopping straight on a second United midfielder, but I don't think I can otherwise. Yeah, so straight answers then. Jossy, we'll come to you first. Who would you prioritise after sort of 40 minutes of chewing over this? Would you prioritise Van Dijk or Szoboszlai? Sorry.
Yeah, Van Dijk.
Yeah, I'm same here, and the main reason for that is, again, longevity of fixtures obviously is one thing there, but it's a player that you can kind of leave there for a long period of time, whereas obviously Szoboszlai, we've just talked about there are one or two minor issues. I'd also be tempted for that week of information just to see whether Reinders could potentially be useful for that kind of lovely run of 6 of City fixtures. If he's back and he's playing 90 this week, for example, then suddenly you're in a situation where you've got someone for a lovely run of fixtures that no one else has got anymore because they've all flogged him. And obviously there's the price changes on Gabriel as well, if that's your thing.
Let's do a very quick in line with what you're saying, Rich. Let's do a very quick what the FPL Wire do, and let's all rank. Let's all pretend we don't own anyone, because you're a Timber owner. You need to forget that for a second. Wipe the slate clean. What are the top 3 Gabriel replacements if you didn't own anyone?
If I didn't own any, oh no, yeah. This is the thing, isn't it? I have to change my thoughts. I really love Timber more than most people, I think.
You Timber. You were Timber first, yeah.
Yeah. So Timber, Van Dijk, Munoz would be my kind of three. But I fully understand not, going for Van Dijk because obviously there's so much reason to this week. But I don't know. I love it. But I should just say, actually, because people were concerned about a cut on his knee. But I think I'm fairly certain he's all right. He's got a kind of 5-day period of recovery, I think, something like that. And so I'm okay with Timber. I think he's fine. Jossy, do you want to go next? You own nobody. Nobody.
At the risk of just copying you, I would go the same. I'd say Timber because we talked about how great the Arsenal defence is, and he has real output. Van Dijk has some routes to points and probably isn't quite as good a defence. And Munoz, again, decent fixtures, great output. And it just so happens I might own all three this week.
You mispronounced delict there, but I'll forgive you. That's fine. No problem. Danny, I feel I wouldn't want to go last in this situation now, but go for it.
It's very hard. I've got more thinking to do, but right now, I think just about right now, I'm in my mind. I've got Van Dijk first for the fixtures and the DEFCON and the sort of talismanic nature and the centre back. Even better minutes, but very, very close. Need to think more on this. Van Dijk, then Timber, and then Munoz as well. And just to add a very slight little point, but it's kind of obvious, but a lot of people like me have got Raya as well. And Timber does change things slightly just in terms of what that looks like, in terms of if and how you get Gabriel back. Because obviously, it would require selling one of those defenders again, unless you want to block yourself out of Saka or Gyökeres. But even without that as part of the decision at the moment, I think just about Van Dijk. But I need to think about it more. I mean, those bookies odds are mental, and there's a reason for that.
No, that's totally fair. Manchester United, we've already talked about just a little bit, but I think it is. We did have a few questions on, understandably, because is it Everton this week? And then there's definitely the next 3 or 4 are really high quality, but they're obviously good for a while, and that's why Bruno is such a handy pick to kind of have locked in there. Just do you remind me? You've had a funny relationship with Bruno. Is he in at the moment?
He is. I had him from Gameweek 1. I was had my head turned by Cunha when I wildcarded in 3. I therefore then missed 2 of his hauls. Brought him back in, and he's missed another penalty for me. But yeah, so I've not. I think I've had 1 haul out of Bruno so far this season, but I've missed a couple of his big points.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. But yeah, Danny, I mean, I have to come to this first, really. So the injury to Sesko is mentioned for those of you who are on audio. Does that injury impact your thoughts on going for the Mbeumo Bruno double up? And that's from Alex Ball. But of course, Cunha's been mentioned more and more and more as well. Numbers not quite so good, but minutes probably more secure. Is he actually playing up top, or is it a kind of Firmino up top? Cunha.
It's really, really interesting and tough with Cunha. I mean, just to sort of context for a second and to sort of get the first bit of the question out of the way, is it doesn't impact my thoughts at all on the double up. And obviously I have the double up. And actually, I'm having to fight away thoughts of the triple up. Because, I mean, and I won't do it because it's such a big bet. But me, for me, like I tend to approach these things sort of, I think, very logically. Like I'm not really bothered about kind of eggs in the basket. I'm bothered about the individual and the fixtures and the logic and looking at players separately and how I think what I think I can get out of those players. And I mean, United's fixtures are ridiculous, especially if a lot of people are on free hit 13. There's only a minor point, but let's just assume for a second you are on free hit 13. United then have got Everton at home, West Ham at home, Wolves away, Bournemouth at home, Villa away, Newcastle at home, Wolves at home, Leeds away, Burnley away. They're just ridiculous fixtures. Now, and the other thing is, obviously, I think I say this to remind myself, United have something that almost no one else has. we're entering a time of pure chaos. Loads of teams are knackered. Loads of teams are trying to win the league and trying to play in Europe and trying to do this and trying to do that. To have small squads. United have got nothing. They've got rest every week. They're training every week. They prepare for every league game. It's huge. It's huge. And it's not just for the fitness. It's fewer kind of injury concerns and other games that things can get mixed up and messed up in. So they've got that ludicrous set of fixtures that I've just read out without much of a fixture congestion. Even in the week when it's supposed to be tight for others, they've got something like a Monday night, a Thursday, Monday or something. It's not even tight for that week. And yeah, I mean, the Sesko thing is it's a difficult one because I think he is very good and I think it's good to have him up front. But Cunha, every time he's been up front, has been very good. And the other thing is, like, United, it's a very system thing with United, as we know. We're not sort of relying on a big man up there. It's like this sort of Crystal Palace system. When it works, the press is really high. And it's a whole team thing, and you sort of saw that in the first few games. It was against like Burnley and Fulham. Saw some videos before that Alaa was sharing with me as well. That was about United doing that. The whole team pressed high up and looked very good, and it didn't really rely on that kind of centre forward. And then also since then, a lot of those players are better. United's confidence has built up. They've been built better defensively. Casemiro is really important for us and has just got better and better. He's really, really good at the moment in midfield. Mount has just, is adding loads of minutes and he's looking better and better with every performance. Obviously, Bumo is just getting better as well. He's looked sensational. Ahmad, and that combination with Ahmad and Bumo. So on paper, everything is kind of getting better for us. I think it'll help Cunha not just for the minutes, but also a little bit for the kind of pressure to perform. I mean, the thing with Cunha that's kind of fascinating to me is it might just be oversimplifying it, but he's looked like he's trying too hard because it's such a big thing to me. He's such a nice guy, Cunha. He's a great guy, and he's a massive thing to him playing for United. And you've seen he desperately wants to do it and to sort of perform. And he has looked like he's been trying too hard. And then when you try too hard, it's a bit like Gyökeres. You sort of you use up energy in the wrong places. You're trying to do this, you're trying to do that. You're everywhere. When he was at Wolves, he didn't really give a shit, and he was an absolute magician because he was just kind of floating around, not doing any running. And when the ball came to him, he'd had this explosive energy and was doing absurd things. And as a consequence, I think he was just better at Wolves because he cared less. And I just sort of hope with that, maybe that extra security. And I mean, he looked great in those games as well. So this is a long way of saying, and when I say those games, I mean against Fulham, Burnley, he had so many chances, so many one-on-ones that were just saved. The guy's a magician. So in other words, I'm saying that kind of trying to view them separately. Cunha looks like a seriously good pick to me in the next few weeks with those improved minutes. A magical player. I know these are also the type of fixtures that you would think could be a little bit more suited to Cunha as well, and not necessarily needing that big forward because we're going to have more possession and we're going to be a little, than we necessarily like. But we're going to have more possession. We're going to be higher up the field. And that's where Cunha is in those tight spaces and getting ridiculous shots off and taking it past people and bits of magic. You would expect him to have a little bit more of that in these fixtures. So he's actually really interesting. It could be really frustrating because, again, someone who's had Bumo and Bruno and been close to a lot of points, I might just sit there now and watch Cunha get all the points, which is a horrendous thought. But it's really difficult with United because I still think Bruno is objectively just about the best pick. All things considered, if you're over a really long space of time. Then you also add in AFCON, which obviously makes him better than Bumo again, much better, because it's not a transfer out. Bumo has been the one who's been playing the best, and he does have a really good output. But yeah, Cunha really does look interesting. So, so I really like them all, but I also have this constant thing eating away at me, which is, I've said loads of times, the last 3 or 4 years, United have cost me so much. Doubling up on the players and having too big a bet on their players. And I'm like, I don't know if I can get past that mentally. So, yeah, but the fixtures are ridiculous.
I have to say, this is one of those situations, isn't it, where actually, in a way, Szoboszlai and Cunha have a slightly similar situation in that, people would be able to use stats as a good reason not to go for them, but they both have a wonderful fixture run. They both obviously high quality players that are have the opportunity to outperform the underlying numbers, that kind of thing. But I have to say, I think there's no doubt in my mind that if I'm in a situation later this week and the press conferences happen and Iraola says, Yeah, Semenyo won't be with us this week. He's got a bit of an issue. There's no way I will be able to stop myself from going to Cunha because it's such an easy move in my situation. I can't quite. I think I can't quite get to Mbeumo. It's just I know it's going to happen. So if that news happens, Danny, we don't even need to chat about it. That's exactly what I will do, even though it's probably a stupid idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that I'm really jealous, but I don't think that's going to happen with Semenyo, thankfully. So you're not going to be able to do something.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But when Semenyo's fixtures turn, perhaps there's going to be a situation there. Just a good chance to say, actually, let's do a like and subscribe shout out at this point, as we're at sort of an hour in. Andy Martin, who was cooking pasta last week at the start, he's too late and he's going back to the start. Well, we'll see you in an hour, I suppose. That's probably the easiest way to put. Yeah. Great. So, actually, just on that before we kind of move on. So we've heard about Manchester United and your thoughts there. Jossy, did you want to add your thoughts on that? Are you rocking a sort of single United midfielder or double? I can't remember.
Yeah, so I've still got Bruno now, and I'm not chopping and changing anymore because that's burnt me. But if I had an easy route to Bruno, I'd happily double up. I do fear a little bit that I don't own Bruno at the moment. He feels like he might be one that gets away from me. But as AFCON approaches, hopefully that'll be less and less of a worry for me. I'm happy to own Bruno for this fixture run.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
It's a really good point to make, actually, is that people are in this kind of odd corridor of time. Thank you, by the way, Mikey, who's just shouted out some likes and subscribes. We love you, Mikey. Thank you very much. It is whether you let that affect your thinking at this point in time with transfers, especially this week. I mean, for someone like me, for example, who, like I said, there's a bit of a debate about whether I do anything with the Njai spot this week, and someone like Sarr, who I kind of lusted after in an FPL sense. Very, very, it's one of those kind of luxury situations. But I don't have any other AFCON picks in my squad. Danny, I think you have a few more, don't you, from memory, because you have Mbeumo, Njai, and maybe one other. Yes, you have three. So you have three mids. Is it playing on your minds generally when you're making your decisions at the moment, or are you sort of putting it to one side?
It is, in the sense that because there's three, and I mean, Njai is the obvious one where the fixtures sort of start to get worse anyway, and it sort of helps push along that is a transfer I'm looking at as Njai. But then, other than that, it's Sarr and Mbeumo, and part of they're such both sensational players that it was always a part of sort of getting on them early, and then I'll be taking them all the way until, which by the way might go longer than we think. I think maybe week 17 even, based on precedent. But yeah, sort of getting the most out of them. And then, I mean, it's not ideal because it does force those sort of a couple of transfers in 16 or whenever we get those 5 transfers are still very precious to me, I think. But yeah, so Njai's on my mind, but not this week.
Cool.
I think we're still a week or two away from closing the door on buying an AFCON player. If there's a really good quality AFCON player, I think there's still a window for at least a couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think it's obvious, this one, but I don't think there is anyone in this situation, but you'd probably immediately exclude AFCON defenders, goalkeepers, and that sort of thing. But when it comes to Mbeumo and Sarr, might be good examples of exceptions where this is maybe the last week that you would, I don't know, that's maybe not true, actually. But it's you probably wouldn't go much beyond this week in bringing either of those in. So yeah, it's a tricky one. So for you, Jossy, you might miss out on Mbeumo. For me, I'm worried about Sarr because Mbeumo feels a bit more difficult to get to as a Saka owner, that sort of thing. So it'd be interesting. Let's have a quick look at Free Hit 13, because a lot of people have asked after. A good friend Pete has asked about. He's also said about jazz recommendations, which Danny quite likes me to do a sort of 10-minute bit in the middle of the pod, just to talk about that, because as we know, This really is a sort of FPL. Do you know what? I was putting this on just before the sum. So it's actually quite a standard one. It's the Miles Davis, and it does a tribute to Jack Johnson. So if you like sort of, if you're a bit of a rock music person instead, and you want a bit of fusion, go there. Let's get 3 hits then. No, Danny, no.
I was gonna say, I'd say that jazz is for people who don't like music, but Richie will get really angry for the rest of the pod if I say that.
Yeah, no. I'm not worried about my music taste. It's highly superior. Let's go to 3 hits. Danny's knocked up actually a couple of drafts on this. So Danny, I'll let you talk it through in just a minute, because I think the main 2 windows that we've been looking at here are Game Week 13 and Game Week 16. And I have to say, the more I've thought about it, those 2 weeks are weeks that really interest me for 2 reasons, really. The thing that's really struggling in my mind is that I really like next week's fixture from a triple captain point of view, and I think that's not a decision you have to make. I think you've already used that chip. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And Jossy, remind me, you don't have a free hit anymore because you spunked it up the wall.
That's correct. I used it.
Triple captain.
Yeah. No triple captain. I used in Game Week 6.
Oh God!
I actually have 0 chips remaining.
You've got an empty bag of chips. Okay,
I've got an empty bag of chips. The free hit and the triple captain and the bench boost went really, really well. Free hit not so much, but I'm all out now.
Let's just try and work this out. So this is free hit 13. Is that right on the screen, Danny?
Yeah, I mean this is such a complex discussion, isn't it? It's just so many layers to this, and I don't even know how to approach this. I mean, I did throw, as you know, literally put these together about half an hour before the pod, which is fine. And I've sort of deliberately done some things a bit randomly on the next one. I will say that before I did that, about 2 hours ago, I had it in my head that I was much more likely to free hit. I was much more attracted to free hit 16. And just in the process of putting these 2 teams together, I'm now really not sure. I'm now really quite torn, and I'm possibly even closer to free hit 13 in terms of its appeal. So where do we start? Where do we start with that? I mean, I suppose some things have shifted. So just to say, there are a few things that have shifted that I can sort of say that are quite notable in terms of that difference. I'm just looking at my team for my team. I say my team because it applies to lots of people's teams as well. So I'll just make some general points of what it would look like in 13. So some things have shifted. For example, we've got a lot of people have got kind of double Bournemouth in Game Week 13 away at Sunderland. Bournemouth don't look as good at the moment as they have done. Their sort of numbers have been going off a cliff a little bit. Don't feel great about their players, and Sunderland look better than they have done. That's just so one little shift there. Another thing is that Gabriel is injured. So again, that might depend on, that was a big thing of just having Gabriel there in 13, for example, is just like he's amazing anyway, and it depends. Whereas I think even someone like Van Dijk, it's never really amazing, especially not West Ham away. I'm probably not really expecting a clean sheet, to be honest. Another thing that shifted in relation to both free hit 13 and 16 is Haaland pulling even further away of being so ridiculous a player. So what I mean by that is it's less appealing, because one of the big things with 16, which I guess we can flick to in a second, but a big appeal for 16 is, of course, that he's playing Palace away, and that you can just go for loads of amazing players, amazing picks, and just not have Haaland. But again, when do you ever really not want Haaland now? I'm not sure. So we can look at that when we look at 16, but so. And I also quite like just how it's sort of setting the team up a little bit more in 16 when it gets to that sort of transfer phase for various reasons, rather than necessarily free hitting and postponing that. And then also some other things, actually. So looking at this sort of team is another sort of shift is Brentford. When I first looked at 13, I was like, well, I don't really like it. It's a bit meh, because basically we're relying on teams that I don't really like. You're relying on, for example, Brentford. Villa is another team with a good fixture. And obviously things like Liverpool. Are Liverpool ever going to turn it around and look great? We don't know. City is City. That I'm pretty happy with that. So Whereas actually, I think Brentford have taken a bit of a shift, and Burnley do look quite bad at the moment. And Brentford, when I suddenly looked at someone like Django, for example, or Sharda, and obviously Thiago looks much, much better. I mean, Thiago is everything we thought he would be pre-season. So there's another shift there in terms of the appeal of this week, and the players that I've got on the screen. Should I better read it out? I hadn't actually. This.
For audio. Yes, of course.
Yeah. Just so this draft of this free hit, and there's lots of players that could be lots of other people. So it's got Raya in goal, it's got O'Reilly at home to Leeds, it's got Collins, Brentford at home to Burnley, it's got Van der Ven at home to Fulham, which also I think is appealing actually, because Van der Ven, just to quickly talk on him, is with every game that goes by looking more and more of a ridiculous monster of a player who's already scored the Puskas goal of the season. And I always like Fulham at home because Fulham are quite a blunt team. They're a good team, but I always quite like that, especially at home for a potential clean sheet. There's not much going on with Fulham, and they're a bit out of sorts anyway. So that's actually really very appealing, that Van der Ven fixture, especially like having not owned him all season as well. Then it's got Soboslai and Salah in midfield away at West Ham. It's got Foden at home to Leeds and Django/Brentford midfielder at home to Burnley. Thiago, Watkins at home to Wolves, and Haaland. And then also, just I suppose in that conversation is, what does it generally look like for people who are not on free hit? So what does the team look like? Now, obviously, again, for me, it's Palace are playing Man United. That's a big one. So a lot of people have got quite a lot of Palace players, and maybe Bruno. I've got 5 in that game, and it's really difficult game to read because Palace. Yeah, and Palace do play in Europe on the Thursday, and then they play on Sunday, and they have typically got tired after that. Palace is never a good fixture, but again, United have a full week's rest. They are a good side. I expect them to score in that game, to be honest, even though Palace are very good, because Palace have had Europe. But it's very difficult to read that game. I mean, is it a low-scoring game? It's not an easy game for Mateta or Sarr because they've had Europe. It's not a great game for the defenders because they've got playing against a fresh United. It's not a great game for United because they're playing Palace. And the context of all this, by the way, again, is that free hit is terrifying this year. It's going to be terrifying in all the weeks, and I'm trying to figure out which week it's less terrifying. Which week? I mean, as Jossy knows, where I think he said he lost like 20 points or something when he played it. It's a terrifying chip. But yeah, I think that the shift with kind of having the Bournemouth players away at Sunderland, that's quite a big blow when you've already got maybe 4, 5 players with Man United, Palace, and then Gabriel's injured. So first of all, that all that being said, I look at that team now and I think, oof, you know what? That's actually got a lot more upside now than I previously thought. I actually really quite like that because I do trust Brentford a bit more. I even trust Watkins and Villa a bit more. They've looked a bit better, and Wolves are completely out of sorts. Wolves at home. So suddenly I'm replacing players that I'm not so scared of. I'm not so worried about. I mean, maybe. Again, I'm not decided here, but it's the Bournemouth players, the Palace players, United players. So there is that. And then if you just switch to a second, so I'll just sort of have a little quick talk through both. If you switch to the Gameweek 16. Now, the reason why 16 always appealed to me is because, again, I always love a logical, real upside, where you can sort of justify it. And you look at the players on this team, rather than bringing in players that are essentially Brentford players and Villa players, and then a sort of Liverpool players that are difficult to trust, you're talking about then still the Liverpool players, but with Brighton at home, which I really like. If you do have United mids, they've got Bournemouth at home, which again looks better now, and that's a Monday night fixture. So that's probably the fixture where United are much more rested than others typically. Again, obviously Bournemouth have got that as well, but Monday night homes at Bournemouth, you can still go Van der Ven. I just threw him in there. Anderson's got Burnley away, Van der Ven, Forest away. But look at the midfielders. I mean, if you do take Haaland out, he's got Palace away. That was always the appeal, is just don't have Haaland. I mean, if you free hit that week, I think you really should just go all out and not have Haaland because he's so expensive. And that can get you. This team is Sanchez in goal at home to Everton. It's Van der Ven, Forest away. It's Timber and Gabriel / any Arsenal defender at home to Wolves. Saka at home to Wolves. Salah, Palmer at home to Everton. Szoboszlai, Bumo. And then ignore Delap, but it was just kind of I ran out of time because we were about to pod, but it's someone, although that could be interesting. It's a striker who's at home to Everton, and then it's Thiago again at home to Leeds. And again, if you think about that team, there are loads of things you could do with that. You could easily have Gyökeres could be back and looking really good by then. I thought he looked like a great pick anyway. So it could be a Gyökeres up front instead of a Delap, which means instead of Saka, you could have a Bruno or any other, a range of other very good midfielders. Doesn't have to be necessarily double Arsenal defence. Palmer is in there as a huge price point, but we don't know what that'll look like. But I hope he's back by then, and he could have had a few games by then, and that's a really nice one because nobody's going to own him potentially, other than those on free hit. It's really difficult to get to, and it could be a fantastic fixture. Because again, when I look at 16, it's obviously different to 13 in terms of, regardless of whether you have Haaland or not, objectively, I think the best captain that week is probably Saka. In all fairness, at home to Wolves. I think that's a nighttime game on Saturday as well, by the way. I think if Palmer was really fit and looking good and looked like he was over his injury and he's played 2 or 3 games, I think he is jointly or just behind as one of the best captain options that week. So this one felt like the one with more upside and big midfielders, all with great fixtures. But as I say, the flip side of that now is, for me, is not going free hit 16 is a time where it naturally falls into that period where lots of players go to AFCON. You're going to use those transfers in 15 and 16 anyway to reshape your team. It feels like a bit of a reset. Thiago has got brilliant fixtures from there onwards. So again, part of that reset of switching these players around who've got AFCON is bringing someone like Thiago, and it's a long-term move. Me and lots of others might be able to bring Saka in anyway. I will be able to bring Saka in anyway, for example. That sort of player who I think objectively is the best captain that week anyway. You're just maybe not going to have your Salah or your Palmer, that kind of pick. And again, but how much of a loss is Salah compared to, because you would have Haaland. And Haaland is still just far and away the best player in the game. And I do expect him to actually score in that game against Palace, even though I wouldn't captain him. So all of a sudden, I'm starting to think, actually 16 is quite nice as a bit of a reset and getting players in long term, sorting out your AFCON, sorting out these picks here and there. And actually, I've still got what is objectively the best captain pick. I miss out on a few, and suddenly 13 does look a bit more appealing to me.
Yeah,
and that was basically my thought process just when I was just throwing these 2 teams together just half an hour before the pod. So now I'm actually really stuck, and I'm thinking 13 looks quite appealing.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say you've kind of made me really think about this again. Because Jossy, I'm sure you're doing the same thing, and you're kind of like, well, I would have him anyway, and I have him, and I would do that, and that sort of thing. And of course, that's what
trying to reassure myself.
And looking at game week 16, so Jossy and I are both Saka owners. We already have Timber, right? So there's already a thing there. I was planning to get Thiago in anyway at that for that period of time, certainly, if not sooner. So that kind of immediately kind of makes me think I'm not too fussed about some of these fringe positions like Van de Ven or Sanchez or whatever it would be. They're free hit picks, aren't they, effectively? So that's already interesting. The one that it's the Salah and the Mbeumo in the drafts that are the things that are currently missing for me. And interesting, but it's also, like I say, the other chips do make a difference. So if I go back to 13, and I'm just speaking aloud from my perspective, and other people will be doing the same sort of thing. Okay, I'm probably not going to get round to owning Thiago soon enough. Whereas if I free hit in 13, I'd have him. But at the same time, I was really hoping that that Leeds at home week just looks like such a good triple captain fixture. But then, of course, triple captain is the sort of weakest chip, isn't it? In the sense that you, we can debate bench boost, but it's the one that it's a movable feast. It's only one iteration of a potential 3 of a player. So, perhaps that's not such a big deal. But yeah, really interesting food for thought. Jossy, what did it make you think looking at that? I mean, as someone who doesn't have this option, what scares you? What would you do?
Yeah, well, I mean, touching on your initial point, where I'm looking at it thinking, well, how close will I be to this anyway? I'm nowhere near that free hit 13 team. Triple up on City, as you say, whether I'll get to Thiago quick enough or not, I don't know. Certainly probably won't have Salah. Well, I won't have Salah. So 13 does feel differential enough from significantly from what I and with a lot of the engaged player base are going to have. You talk about it being a great triple captain week. It is, but that means it's also a great week to have the City triple up, which a lot might struggle to get to. And it's always a bit dicey picking 3 City players, but pick them on free hit if you've got some kind of idea who's going to start, maybe based on past minutes or midweek minutes. Could be a good.
And the great thing is, actually, as you say, I think it is an early kickoff. I'm sure the chat will let us know where City early kickoffs fit in this. But of course, you've got some flexibility there, haven't you? You've got the Donnarumma option if you don't like betting on that left back slot. So that's another thing. That's definitely one there. I suppose in both these drafts there are things where it depends on what flavour you like there. So some people won't like Dango, for example, in this draft. Some people won't like what was in the other one? Delap, obviously, as you say, is a kind of, we have to wait and see what the situation is at the time, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I wouldn't have read.
Yeah, that's just literally a price point. I was just kind of showing you the midfield.
I'm not chastising you for it, Danny.
Yeah, no,
but it looks exciting.
Danny's down there with the carpet fitters, picking free hit. Picking Raya on free hit is a new category of sort of a handyman sort of cheese sandwich with a cold tomato soup. Or
to be honest, again, I didn't even really look at the goalkeepers in that fixture, but to be honest, that's the sort of fixture.
Could do that, couldn't he?
Well, that's the sort of fixture that jumps out to me for Raya that actually I like. I'm looking forward to that fixture for Raya because I expect Arsenal to clean every game, except he might get some saves in that one. So
that is the Raya 9-10 pointer, isn't it? That kind of fixture is the only one where you might get that, and he legitimately might pull out 2 or 3 boners in a fixture like that. So
yeah. And by the way, sorry, Rich. Just to say before I forget, because some people might look at these teams and think, "Oh, I can't afford that," but I have put, because I've probably got more than your average person. I don't know, because I wildcarded in game week 4, but there are things like Anderson on the bench there, and again, obviously Raya. You can easily lose $1 million or 2 and have pretty much the same team on both. Just FYI. But yeah, just to say that you could even go 4-5-1. By the way, in 16, there's lots of good defenders, and just instead of Delap, you could have another massive defender and have even more money. But yeah, sorry, what were you going to say, Rich?
No. I think trail of thought's gone. But no, that's I think real food for thought. I mean, if you does it affect your transfers this week, Danny? Because I have to say this is one thing that bothers me a little bit about making decisions this week. Is there a knock-on effect on what happens next week? And a good example for me is is there's sort of less point bringing in Sarr if there's a free hit week. It's not a watertight argument, but it feels slightly like a less point. And of course, really, I'd be buying him for 3 away fixtures essentially, which are all good games, and he's really good in away games, so it's not a problem. But he does have a knock on.
Yeah. I mean, it should. It doesn't really for me. I'll tell you. I'll try and think of a few reasons around quickly. Because as I said, I'm already sort of leaning towards the Gabriel move anyway, and I never let sort of 1 week affect, especially a defender move. It's always going to be a long-term move. But for lots of people, I think it probably will and should. Especially it's that midfielder position. A lot of people have got this sort of midfielder move to make, and there are players that are appealing that for example, free hit 13 changes quite a lot. I mean, Foden is an obvious one where he's not a player that strikes fear in me at all anymore, because he seems to have taken up a slightly different role. But although I do think it's brewing, I'm very interested in Foden at the moment, because suddenly we've got this player who is getting the minutes, and I've no doubt about his minutes at the moment because he's playing so well in midfield. He is not one I'm remotely concerned about, which I've not said in probably ever, in fact, in his entire Man City career. He's probably mid-20s now. He's got 3 kids. He's probably got grandkids, and this is the first time he's nailed. But he's very interesting because what does that look like? How does that manifest? Because I think he's just brewing, where he just seems to be taking a few more shots. I mean, I don't know, but it's very interesting. But obviously that's the standout fixture for him. So if you were thinking about bringing him in or whatever, you're not going to. If you're going to free hit 13, there's not much point. Another thing is, if you're thinking about Man United midfielders, as I said, that's their worst fixture really, is Palace away in 13. And I think that appeals massively more if you're someone who has bringing in a United midfielder, and then therefore free hit 13, enables that more. And I've forgotten my other point now, but yeah. So does that? So it does. It certainly impacts I think what the transfer is going to be for quite a few people. This is why suddenly it's quite pressing for me to think about which week am I going to free hit. But again, for me, the defender move this week buys me at least another week. It takes me to the end of next week or whenever it is the next game to decide whether I'm free hitting in 13 or not.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, I have to say your bit there has made me think about this a little bit more carefully than because I just really do like that week for a triple captain. But yeah, having those options, as Jossy says, the additional Man City players with an early fixture.
Yeah, you got to be careful as well. I mean, I always say this. The way I formulate my thoughts quickly before a pod is I'm always going to therefore say I'm always going to sound like convincing in one way. Like I gave you quite a one-sided argument because I'd flipped my whole train of thought.
And... Yeah, but it will save me time. Then I don't need to worry about it myself. So thank you very much. All sorted for you.
No, but but like Jossy said, like I've got almost none of those players in 13, which is true. But that equally makes it terrifying because we've all got good players. We've got good teams. And we are bringing in, as I say, Brentford players and Spurs players and stuff. So it could go catastrophically.
I'm going to answer this last question very, very quickly, and then we're going to move on to fixtures and teams essentially, really here, because we were sent a question about wildcard windows, and I have to be honest with you, it's quite hard to engage with it properly, other than to say that one would tend to argue that this week is an excellent week to do that now, because you do have that. You do have a couple of swings upcoming for Man City fixtures next week, so you could delay it a week, I suppose. Liverpool this week, etc. A lot of people have got a couple of injury problems, so you would be able to fix that this week. So it is hard to look beyond the immediate sense, because of course you've got those 5 transfers that come in 16. Does anyone want to throw out an alternative suggestion? Because I have to say, I'd like it a lot sooner rather than later, really, unless you are literally going to save it for Christmas Eve. Which, what is that? Is that game week 19? I think.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, Jossy. Jossy, is any? You don't have
to. No, I don't particularly. As I went quite early as well, and so I haven't been thinking about windows. I often think it's so blunt, but it's team dependent. If you're in a bit of trouble, but I think this week, or a lot of people were planning early in the season that game week 13 was going to be the week, but I think 12 seems to have landed as quite a good opportunity to use it. Did you have specific thoughts, Danny?
No, not really. But I mean, there are 2 things that come to mind for me, because it is a kind of, we've not got long left, and so they're all quite soon. I mean, 2 things I would say is Zoff put a wild card together today on the wire. Was it today they did the wire? I don't know. I'm losing. No, was it yesterday or something? I don't know. I caught whenever he did it this week. It's a very nice wild card, right? And I think he did say this, but it's something people who sort of, I don't know. Not that there'll be many, but anyone who's listened to me for a while, or whenever I've done like wildcards and other pods and stuff, I always talk about structure and price points and flexibility. And the really nice thing about Zoff's wildcard, I mean, if you watch it on his draft, if you watch it on the wire, because I haven't put any of this stuff together, but if you think about it this week, so first of all, it had Salah in it. Okay, so it obviously had Salah, which obviously is a big gamble, and Salah's not been doing much, but the fixtures are there. He could go off. I mean, blah blah blah. So it's kind of an upside thing to get on the Salah and Haaland thing. But the crucial thing about that draft, what I really liked was it's so flexible. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the team, pretty much, I can't remember what it was now, but you would wildcard into the defense that he had, the entire defense, pretty much, give or take a couple of tiny little things. You would wildcard into his whole defense anyway, whether you had Salah or not. You would wildcard into his whole front line anyway, whether you had Salah or not. It was like Thiago, whatever it was. I think it was Mateta as well, Haaland. The defense was whatever it was, double Arsenal, Van Dijk, Palace, Anderson, whatever it was. And it was like Bumo, Szoboszlai and Salah or something like that in midfield. So something like that's quite nice, because you can get on the Salah train and the Haaland train, and you're already on Salah, who's impossible to get to. It's very easy to switch in basically 2 moves to a team that you would wildcard to anyway that didn't have Salah. So it's really flexible and nice. You're not touching the defense. You're not touching the front line. It's done. But it also has Salah. So I just wanted to mention that because it's kind of obvious, but it's quite a nice thing to think about. And other than that, I didn't look at the sort of overall fixtures, but in looking at, as I say, in looking at the free hit and kind of looking ahead to 16 and stuff, I don't mind whichever it is. I think 16 itself, I don't mind that as a window as well, because I actually, I really like wildcarding and just keeping the five free transfers. You wildcarding, you got 5 free transfers, and you're not using anyone like a lot of us will, because lots of us have got transfers planned. We need to make them. We want to make them. We want to refresh our team, and that's not even taking into account all the other mess that's going to come, especially in this congested period where players will get injured, they will get suspended. Palmer is another one on the window of 16. So in 16, you've got potentially an opportunity to completely refresh your team. Get rid of all the AFCON guys. You've got all that more information in terms of maybe you triple up on Arsenal in terms of what Liverpool look like and what Salah looks like and what Szoboszlai looks like, and especially Palmer, who suddenly has Everton at home and he could be the one who no one will be able to get to. And then of course you get to do all that and you get to keep your 5 free transfers. So I didn't mind that as well, just thinking about it. But I haven't really looked at what that looks like. It's just a kind of rough thought.
Sounds good. Let's have a dive a little bit later. We'll just have a quick I just want to make sure I've got my order right. So we'll just have a quick reflection on the week's fixtures, and then we'll go on to our teams and our own personal dilemmas, and see if there's anything anyone wants to pick out here. Of course, I'm trying to think if there are any particular dilemmas that people face when they're sort of choosing bench defenders and that sort of thing, but it doesn't look particularly. I suppose Anderson versus Senesi is an interesting one, because technically it looks like Anderson is more, on this metric is more likely to keep a clean sheet than Senesi. But again, last week I backed Senesi, and I'm probably just going to do it again. But I don't know if either of you have that debate as well. Not that it's particularly a debate in my head, but
what was that?
Senesi versus Anderson, and also in some cases, well, for a team like ours, Danny, you could make a justification for playing Anderson above Njai, which of course, technically, on this anyway, on RobT's slide here, not demeaning his work, by the way, on this, but Sunderland are predicted 1.01 goals. Everton at Man United are projected to get 1.07. So Njai not obviously looking like he's going to feast in that game. So does that help or any of your decisions at all? Will not help your decisions, but does it make you think about your decisions?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just thinking about Fulham and Sunderland and just some thoughts, because that's quite a big one for Anderson, and it's very difficult to read that. I mean, first of all, it's very worth saying that Fulham, I'm pretty sure, don't have Lukic, who is an important player for their defence as well. I mean, Sunderland, was it the last game? Because I'm getting all my match of the days mixed up now because it's been so long since they played.
It was the Arsenal home game.
The Arsenal game, the Arsenal game. I mean, they were so impressive, weren't they? But again, they were like, it was the hunger, and it was a few things, and it was just the movement of the centre backs and stuff, and it was the size of the players. You just thought, when balls are going to the box, you just thought, how can you stop these guys? Ballard is an absolute monster, and then obviously Mukiele and the other guy and Robbie and stuff. I just thought, Jesus, these guys are a real handful. It's just like in the set pieces and the long throws and stuff. So that just looks difficult to me. But again, if anyone can do it, I mean, you think that's the United game, and it looks even better that result now, doesn't it? When we beat Sunderland 2-0 very comfortably, and maybe that's some kind of a system thing. I don't know, but it's very difficult to read that game. But I just I'm not wild about Anderson clean sheet there. And yeah, you mentioned Njai. I was sort of. It's weird looking. It's a bit down looking at this because it's a very polarized week, isn't it? Where there's loads of teams that look really good all of a sudden. We've had some bland ones recently, and now you've got all these that are really jumping out: Liverpool, Bournemouth, Chelsea, Arsenal. Brighton looks quite nice for you, Rich, with Minte. And Liverpool, when you think about Szoboszlai, when you look at those numbers, it's a bit of a reminder. For Liverpool, that's a huge numbers there. You think about any of those picks, again, someone does want to go Szoboszlai. This is the guy who I expect to be the number 10, 90 minutes, the one pulling all the strings. And it's some serious numbers there. I mean, yeah, I quite like Njai because I still don't trust United's defence at all. So I'm quite happy to roll this week and play Njai. And it's sort of he keeps stepping up on the big stage, and you sort of fancy him at Old Trafford to be wanting to show. You see that you sent me that trick as well, didn't you, Rich? That was silly business.
Oh
yeah. What an absolute baller. So yeah, I mean, I didn't really say anything there. I'm just sort of thinking, geez, I've not got any Chelsea players. And look at their numbers. I'm like, whoa.
Well, actually, to be honest with you, I think this is an opportunity here for we've not discussed it, and I think it's a slow burn thing that people don't really want to leave until Saturday morning. I assume that's when the deadline is. Yeah, it must be. Captaincy. So, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people, well, us included, would have looked at this week and it looked like a fairly obvious one to chance your arm and go against Haaland. Newcastle obviously haven't looked terribly good in the last 2 away games before the international break, and maybe that's affected people's thinking a bit. Haaland continues to do what he's been doing. So I'd be interested to see where you both sit on captaincy and how. I suppose Saka is someone who we both own, Jossy, and obviously Danny has his double United mids. So there is a bit of a dividing line here in terms of which alternatives we might look at. But where do you sit, Jossy? Do you feel like are you ready to chance your arm and put it on Saka or Bruno or someone?
I'm more tempted than I was last week at home to Liverpool. Certainly, the odds don't look great for City. Newcastle, like you say, they've not been great the last couple of away games. They're a lot better at St James's Park. The thing with Haaland is they projected 1.68 goals. You can imagine probably 1.3, 1.4 of that is Haaland. So he's got a huge share of whatever City produce. At the moment, I'm feeling cowardly, and I'm going to leave it on Haaland, I think.
Yeah, it just feels too logical at the moment, doesn't it? It feels too logical. I mean, he's just normally, again, it's what Newcastle are as well. It is quite hard to read with that because, I mean, I think we haven't Newcastle. There are problems at Newcastle. I thought we did. We talked about them a bounce back last game because they said Dan Burn had kicked off in the dressing room. They all had this massive talk. They'd all had this really heart to heart and said, "We're going to go back to being rum and we've got to go back to basics and blah blah blah." And then they just got hammered by Brentford. So that's a blow. That when you get hammered in a game that you should win after the so-called reset is an issue, and that obviously that's got me thinking. And I mean, with Newcastle, we always said they've got a great man manager and a sort of a matchup manager, should I say? They've always been very good at this fixture. They're very good at home. They've got one of the best centre midfielders centre midfields in the world with the 3 midfielders that they've got. They're so hard to play against. It just feels like at the moment, though. So there is that. So it's very hard to play against. But at the moment, it just feels like they're on their own. That midfield, there isn't. Whereas previously they had lots of things working with that, and they had this really powerful and energetic kind of front 3 and Gordon and Isak and all that sort of going on. It was all an intense thing. Whereas now it's like, I don't know, it just sort of feels like if you can just bypass or get around that midfield, they're not causing much of a problem, Newcastle. But anyway, that's probably looking too far into it. It's just Haaland is just obviously just so ridiculous. I mean, it's too ridiculous at the moment. I think there was a stat I saw. Was it that he's had 60% of their XG for the season or something like that? So it's like the most of any player ever at this stage of a season in any league. No one's even close. I mean, if you have 30% of the team's XG, it's ridiculously high, and he's on 60, I think.
I think it was more than that.
Yeah, it might have been. Might have been even a bit more than that. So, and City, obviously, the thing with City is they look like they're just getting into a better place, don't it? They really do. I mean, that performance of Liverpool, I know it wasn't necessarily a 3-0, but they were the better side, and they were fairly comfortable. So they're on the way up, and everything's sort of ticking in place for them. everything's working, as I say, with Foden and Bernardo Silva, or whether it's Reinders and obviously Doku and blah blah blah. So, I mean, I think Saka is the one if I was going to go, and I don't own him, and so I know you do, Rich, but that is the one if I was, if I was going to go against it. That feels fairly reliable to me in terms of Saka, actually, in terms of the general performance in that North London derby, and that he's also someone who's clearly on the up, and he's clearly really sharp and on it at the moment. And
do we place any stock in Thomas Frank's ability, certainly when he was at Brentford, to bring it in the big games, to kind of nullify big teams? You often had good results. I don't know if he's been able to impose himself in Tottenham enough yet.
I mean, you definitely do, but then it's just, I don't think it's as easy as that, is it? I mean, we saw that with Chelsea. So what happened at Chelsea, I don't know, because it looked to me like they tried to set up and make it difficult, and I don't know what they were doing. And obviously, they were just absolutely diabolical, and they just offered nothing, and got booed off the pitch. So it's now really difficult for him. So how does he approach this game? Because he doesn't want to offer nothing. Spurs fans are used to seeing, Harry Kane and Son tear Arsenal apart, even if Arsenal are a better team in the league. So they're not going to have it. So they're five at the back, and they're not offering anything forward. That's just not good enough. So it's really quite difficult to think how he's going to approach that game. I just don't know. But I would feel very good about Saka. I mean, I'm not happy with the fact that I don't own him. I mean, I don't own him because I had Gyökeres, and that's gone to pieces. So, but he's definitely the one. Whereas I don't trust. I still like United assets. I like owning them. They've got the fixtures. They're good assets. They're kind of good individual players, but they're not really there in terms of captaincy. Whereas Saka does feel acceptable as a captain. And, in these conversations, yes, it's absolutely, as Haaland, you expect him to get that return. I don't really expect him to double return, but maybe I'm being foolish, because at the end of the day, you've got to back what's actually happening. And what's happening is he's doing ridiculous things. And he is going to have a ridiculous season if he stays fit and get probably a goal record and destroy everyone. That's what's happening. So you can back that. But your captain just needs to return, and then the rest of it is down to luck. Can Newcastle keep City out? Well, they can. We know they can, because they've done it many times before. They've won many times before at home. So the question is, don't be that terrified of Haaland. It's just, can your captain return? And obviously, it always helps with a midfielder, someone like Saka, who's got the potential for DEFCON, which is massive. And obviously isn't even on Haaland's radar. And he's got the potential for extra points for a goal, extra points for a clean sheet. Doesn't have to do much, Saka, to be a very reasonable captain output, regardless of what Haaland does. But you own him, Richard. So what you're
It's so to simplify it, a few managers in the chat have Greg Frost in the chat, he's very, very keen on Bruno Fernandes, but personally, as someone who owns all three of these in that conversation, he's not part of my thinking at all, really. It is Saka or Haaland. I'm fairly keen to chance it this week and go with Saka, I think, but it's just how much the fear will creep in later on and sway my thinking. So if I can stay away from the buttons late on, then I think Saka is a perfectly viable one this week. It is a fixture that is tempestuous, and it's I don't know, it smells like a penalty game as well. So I think there's definitely some potential there.
And we have to remember. Just want to say quickly, we're always about the active managers and what we're going to see on Twitter and all that sort of stuff. And loads of people are not going to captain Haaland. So however you feel about that, whether it makes you more comfortable, because he's probably, I think he's third on the models. Yeah. So Saka, I'm pretty sure last time I looked, Saka's top, Bruno Fernandes is second, or it's something like that. But I'm pretty sure it might change by the end of the week. But it's very justifiable from a model point of view. So you're going to see the vast majority of kind of analytics managers and review slaves are not going to captain Haaland. And they're, in turn, lots of other people are also not going to. So take of that what you will. You can get on board a load of people who also won't, and it's because it's very justifiable. It's perfectly reasonable to go against Haaland this week. Perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jossy, I'll be in the DMs trying to persuade you.
I'll be agonising over that till deadline, I'm sure.
Speaking of which, there is Haaland captain, Jossy not wavering in the slightest. So do you want to tell us your situation? And if you could read out your team for audio for our lovely audience who I'm sure have hit their like and subscribe buttons by now. And
if they haven't, they certainly should be.
Yeah. I mean, it's outrageous, isn't it? We've been going for all this time, waiting just to be loved. Go ahead. Tell us about your team.
So at the moment, I've got Dubravka in goal at home to Chelsea. In the starting line at the moment, we've got Gabriel and Timber. Munoz as well, away at Wolves. Then we've got Reinders, Bruno Fernandes, Ismail Sarr, Saka and Semenyo across the midfield, and Haaland and Mateta up front. We've got first bench is Anderson at home to Sunderland, which is not a bad first bench option. And I've got Krupi Jr. and Esteve. Looking at RobT's numbers, the one thing that stood out is that my two goalkeepers, and this does not surprise me, have a combined goal sheet probability between them of 27%. That's the two of them combined. So my initial plan all week was Cardio was going to go. I was going to move him down to Petrovic, and that was going to fund me getting Reinders to Minte. Really comfortable with that move. It's exact cash, and the money's still there to do that. Gabriel's now a problem, obviously. I was happy to do that move still and just allow Anderson to sub in and deal with Gabriel another day. But I am now starting to lean towards maybe I could do Gabriel to Van Dijk and still fund the Minte, Reinders to Minte move. I do have 2 free transfers, so that's for free. Welcome. The question mark for me is, and I know goalkeeper transfers are traditionally, they're always low value, but is getting off Vicario, who has a pretty rough set of fixtures coming up. So next week, Fulham at home is not too bad. Getting him down to a Petrovic, getting that money out of the goalkeeping spot, is there more upside in that over trying to get something out of Dubravka this week versus just playing Anderson over Van Dijk?
Here's the bit where we ask you whether you want any notes.
Oh, always notes. I know Danny won't hold back.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, we'll see what Danny says in a minute, but I would immediately dismiss your plan for a goalkeeper transfer personally. I know it's frustrating and you don't want to, and you hate looking at him every week and that sort of thing. But lots of people have 2 shocking goalkeepers this week. So I have Pope and Dubravka, and is that much better? I mean, I'm going to play Pope.
No, it's not. Yeah.
And I'm hoping he gets 3 or 4 points, and I guess I'll be happy enough with that. But yeah. I think in your situation, you just
Richie froze. He's frozen.
He's contemplating my team
next week. So,
there we go.
That alone would be enough to persuade me. I think you prioritise the important outfield moves there. But what do you think?
Okay, you froze there, Richie.
Yeah, we may have lost some crucial advice from you.
It's fine. Yeah, you froze there, Richie. So I don't know if it's for everyone.
Yeah, no, I realise that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. It's fine. No, great. But we got the gist of what you were saying. I agree with the keepers. So in terms of prioritising the outfield, I mean, what I would say is that I would, and this is just me, it doesn't mean it's probably not right. I don't know if it's optimal, but I would start Vicario and I'd be quite low-key excited about it. I don't know, because I just think, I sort of think there's virtually no chance of Dubravka getting a clean sheet. It's how I sort of view it, whether that's right or wrong. I mean, they are at home. Maybe that's unfair. I think there's virtually no chance. Whereas Vicario, it's a North London derby. They are 2 big clubs. I do expect him to get a lot of saves. And also, really, I mean, what we're talking about in modern day, when we're not talking about Man City, really, virtually, and actually teams that have a different system like Man United or Palace or something like that, it's basically set piece FC football in the whole league. Not to demean Arsenal too much, but it's really, if Spurs are able to really, really well and successfully defend Arsenal's set pieces, and you're talking about a guy who was the manager of the club that was the best in the league last season for set piece net XG, so for and against, and he's got players like Romero and Van de Ven who look awesome at the moment. I don't know if Romero's fit, but I know Van de Ven is. I mean, you can see it in a derby. You can see something happening. Obviously, I expect Arsenal to probably win, and we've said what we've said about Saka and all that sort of stuff. But it is if they can defend all the set pieces really well, anything could happen in that game. Is what I'm saying. That could be a massive haul for Vicario. Whereas I think that's less likely for Dubravka.
Yeah, I think that's true. That's fair.
Is Vicario not known to be? I remember the above average guys used to complain that balls in the box, balls in the air, that they were really, I don't know if that was mainly Ange, but that they were really flaky, that he was, and maybe it was Ange.
Not sure.
I'll maybe get in Baker's ear.
Maybe, yeah, but I mean, it's fresh. I mean, it's,
yeah.
Thomas Frank can do these things.
I think what I would say, pretty obvious, but that you could see Burnley conceding 5 to Chelsea. It's not. I know. It's not, hopefully for them they won't, right? But I can't see Arsenal kind of going to absolute town. I say this as someone who's just sitting captaining Saka.
Yeah. But no, I think Reinders is an issue, unfortunately, isn't it, at the moment? And especially we're in that phase. I mean, it's a shame because he's such a great player. But Bernardo Silva has been fantastic in the centre of midfield recently with the system that they've been using. So I guess I've not seen the expected lineups yet, but I probably expect Reinders to not start again. So
I agree.
You have got an issue. Minter does look great, but I don't know. It's how much have you got any money in the bank? Do you say, or does it need to be someone cheap?
So if I go Gabriel to Van Dijk, I've got exact cash for Minte 6.0. Now I could always go cheaper.
Because I know I've said it already, but it is I understand the 4 yellows thing. If it wasn't 4 yellows, I wouldn't even hesitate that it would be Szoboszlai.
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand that the 4 yellows is
a thing. Yeah,
bit of an issue.
Just out of interest, Jossy, if you did Gabriel to Van Dijk and Reinders down to like an absolute nobody, played Anderson this week, would you afford Krupi to Thiago next week? Because you're not on free hit. I'm just thinking about that. If you're not on free hit, then that might be a
good shout.
Let's do that now.
Oh, live! This is exciting, everybody.
Live. This is live.
I mean, actually, a very high-performing manager, probably. If I remember, Matt, you have to tell me if I'm wrong. He said play Anderson over Reinders anyway, so maybe.
Yeah, well, he's got it like that because he's going to sell Reinders. He's not going to play Reinders over.
Yeah. No, I'm aware, but like, I suppose what I mean is playing Anderson for a week isn't the end of the world.
Yeah. No, I like that shout. I like that shout if you can afford it. Yeah,
I would need to get Reinders down to a 3.3 million midfielder. So
God, my maths is absolutely awful. So I'm $1 million out. Christ.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Well, never mind.
O'Reilly. Well, O'Reilly time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Possibly. Well, if I went for Szoboszlai, then I can only spend 4.4 on Gabriel. Which again, that's a Van Hecke kind of.
I know what's going to happen. By the way, I'm already predicting it now, Jossy. At some point between now and deadline time, you're going to be thinking, I could get away with taking a hit, removing Vicario to a dud goalkeeper, play Dubravka every week, and then I've somehow got the cash to get Thiago or Szoboszlai, something like that.
Yeah, I've already considered a -4 that would have been Vicario to a Petrovic. But yeah, I was trying to do all sorts of jiggery pokery to see if there's any way Boomo could come in, but not unless I'm challenging Semenyo. Anyway,
we'll see.
Sorry. No, you go.
Terrible. No, all I was going to say was to go into the next bit, which was to say, and we'll see where you stand on captaincy. But I'll go back to Danny.
No, I was just going to say, like, just to reiterate, because I think sometimes it is important to reiterate, to push someone's thinking, and it doesn't need to be because it might be wrong. But I'd just like to say that again, that I really like Richie's shout is my view of that team, of how you want to move it really long term. And it's not that Minter isn't a great shout, but and I know you know this, but this decision is really significant because these moves with these 2 free transfers is deciding your formation for the next 7 or 8 weeks.
Yeah. My thought process was, and it's a few weeks away, and maybe is that by game week 16 that Sarr would go and he would, and then we could do the double move to get Thiago in.
Yeah, I've got a similar. Yeah, that's in my head as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that as well. Yeah, so it depends, but that's what I mean. Yeah, so you've got to decide which I'm sure you've thought about. But yeah, I mean, because you've got Timber, so you do have that sort of, and Munoz, so you've got a very big defense already in terms of adding Van Dijk. Is like, do you want Van Dijk or do you need it? Sort of thing is obviously the question.
It's me next. I thought it was Danny for some reason. Okay, I'll read it out. So Pope in goal, obviously expecting big things from him. Gabriel, Senesi and Timber at the back. Minte, Semenyo, Fanage, Njai and Saka, who probably will be captain. Mateta and then Haaland. And then the bench of Dubravka, Anderson, Rodon. And we did agree on how this was pronounced, but the Chelsea 4.2 striker. There we go. Likely, probably won't shock anyone, but Gabriel to Van Dijk. That would leave me. Actually, what is he? Van Dijk's 5.9, is he?
Yeah.
So then I have 500,000 in the bank. Okay. So it's just about then what happens to these midfielders. Obviously, you could quite legitimately roll that. If Semenyo's out, I've got a decision to make about whether I am brave enough to go for something like a Cunha. And then assuming that he is fine, it's just whether I hold Njai, keep pushing on, or I give in to my absolute love / fear of Sarr every week. And I know that there's a lot of reasons why I could not do it, but I'm a big believer of his. So I get twitchy every time I have the opportunity to do it. But yes, I mean, and I'm welcome. I'm happy to throw out notes. I suppose, like both of you, Szoboszlai was someone who was in the thinking for that spot as well. It's just a little bit harder to justify, but haven't ruled it out. Any notes?
Well, I mean, I'm talking about Palace. I really hope, it's been incredibly frustrating, but you can only accept whatever happens. But this is obviously where it's not often at the moment with their schedule, where you get to be objectively, like it needs to be this week. Wolves, after a 2-week break, and a lot of the players have not played much minutes on the international front.
Yep.
Like, if it's not now, I mean, come on, taking the piss. It's been annoying.
I agree. As a non-owner, it's ridiculous how I've completely gotten away with that one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you were right before about that, and obviously Enzo, like we all have. I said didn't I last pod that I was terrified of Enzo, and I can't believe he got away with that one big time last week. But yeah, Sarr, I mean, Jesus. So this is the one. It's like, come on now. But you can only, if it doesn't happen again, it's one of those things where you can look back at the whole season, just go, it just wasn't happening in these games when you can't explain it. But no, I mean, there's nothing to say really. You can't logically really make any of those moves for me now with the Gabriel injury. And if you got one transfer, is that right? Oh, you got two, bastard. Look at me grafting here, struggling every week with one. Keep being forced to make one. But okay, so you got a little bit more room with two then. But
Yep. I think if it was a different time of the season and so on, I wouldn't bother. But of course, we do have this odd period where there's probably a 50-50 chance I free hit next week as well. And then, as you know, that affects your transfers a bit, doesn't it? Because you can't carry through a free hit and that sort of thing. Anyway,
you can
so,
carry
yeah,
through. You don't get an extra one, just to clarify for listeners there.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. So what I mean to say is if I use 2 this week and then free hitted, I come back with 1 in 14.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, true. No, but I mean, it's Gabriel. So are you very likely to just do Gabriel to Van Dijk? Is that the situation that we're in?
So Gabriel to Van Dijk is almost definite, right? So that's kind of 90%. And then I have 1 free transfer left with 500,000 in the bank. So it's whether So I've only got 1 AFCON, as you know, so I haven't got too many problems. That's another thing to throw in the mix. So it's just whether I believe in Sarr enough to go for him for a relatively short period of time, or do I just hold out on Njai? And I don't know yet is the answer to that one. I haven't made my mind up. But yeah.
It's interesting that you both own Timber and you both rated Timber higher than Van Dijk, whereas most people who don't own them seem to be maybe rating Van Dijk higher. And I don't know how much your minds are being influenced by the fact that you already own him. It's hard to read.
It's a bit. I'll be honest with you. There are different terms that we could use for this, but you have to remember I sunk a lot of capital, so to speak, in getting Timber. So I made 2 kind of completely unnecessary transfers, some would argue, just to put him in place. So he owes me, and I love him, but he needs to pay me back now. So I do think there is. You asking me is probably not wise. I have a big relationship with him.
Yeah, I was quite excitable when I bought Timber. I thought he was going to be the best defensive asset because he was looking electric in attack when I picked him up, and he hasn't really delivered on that, to be honest. He hasn't really delivered on it, but that's why I'm kind of hopeful that that's going to come to pass at some point soon.
He got that 24-pointer, didn't he, at the start of the season when no one owned him? I mean,
yeah. And it wasn't even that turned my head, to be honest. It was a game.
It's the West Ham game, I think.
It was the West Ham game, and he was in the box. He was tearing into the defense. He looked like a winger. But yeah.
No, he's an incredible. He has looked incredible every week, and I've been saying it to you, Rich, as well. I've wanted him, and know I've just there was one point where I said he was the best before Gabriel started going off. I thought he was the best pick at the club, and then then Gabriel just started scoring every single week. So yeah, it's really difficult. I mean, he went up in price last night. Timber. It's quite annoying.
Oh, did he? Okay, that's nice.
I was just double checking then because I remember looking last night for just out of interest at the price change because I wanted to just see how far Gabriel was away from dropping and all that sort of stuff, and he's nowhere near dropping. But I knew Timber was going to rise, and he did. Anyway, so yeah, okay, so.
Well, let's move on to Danny's team. But yes, do let me know in the chat if you how you feel about the Njai to Sarr move. I'm interested to see what other people think about that. Cool. Where are we? Sorry. Yes, there we are with Danny's team.
Yeah, so not much to say for my team. Must have taken that screenshot ages ago because Gabriel's not even flagged there. So it's just to read it out. It's Raya, Senesi at home to West Ham, Lacroix, Gabriel, Bruno, Sarr, Semenyo, Njai, and Burmo, Mateta, and Haaland, captain at the moment. Anderson first sub, and then Goodmanson. So obviously I was just hoping to roll this week. In the end, that was going to be quite a nice roll, really. Obviously, there's some midfielders tempt me, but Njai's a great pick. But now it looks like I'm going to have to sell Gabriel. So for me, without having really got properly stuck in yet, so hopefully I can think more in the next couple of days. It's Gabriel to Van Dijk or Timber, but more likely Van Dijk. I think I'll go for the long term fixtures and DEFCON and hope that Liverpool can find some ability deep within to figure out how to actually get some clean sheets sometimes. But I the more I think about them, I don't know, man. It's worrying. It's worrying because even against Forest at home, I'm thinking Forest are good. You know, then I don't think they're even going to keep Forest out at home. But then I don't know. Clean Real Madrid. Who knows what's going on? What do you think, just quickly before we finish, about Slot, Jossy, and Liverpool? Like, is he going to turn it around? Because I'm like, has he just got? Did he have it too easy last year, and he's therefore just a bit complacent on like how difficult the Premier League actually is?
Look, I think it's both out of the blue. Sorry, it's. I think he is been taken by surprise this season. He probably did have it a bit too easy last year. We walked away with it last season. But at times, I don't think we were fantastic. People talked like we were fantastic last year. We were a bit of maybe I'm remembering it.
A lot went your way, didn't it? It did fall.
Yeah, a lot went our way. We did get an awful lot of penalties. But we were quite solid. We didn't. It felt like we were more controlled than we were under the days of Klopp. But we got a head of steam, and we were comfortable quite early. So I think, yeah, things did go our way. This season, I don't think it's all on him. I think that we've made too many changes too quickly. But to be the case, people talk about we've spent 450 million quid. We have, but I think people underestimate the players who've gone out the door as well. Diaz was a really important player for us. For different reasons, we obviously lost Jota. He was a big player for us, and I think Trent was also massive. So I think that it's not all being squad enhancements. There's been some ins, some outs. The fullbacks have disappointed. Kerkez, I'm surprised how Kerkez has started out his Anfield career. He seems vulnerable, and he's been a weak spot for us. There isn't, and I know he cries about this a lot. Teams are sitting back a lot. We had a lot of joy. We've always had a lot of joy releasing Salah on the break. Salah loves that that goal where he gets away from his defense. No one's given us the opportunity for Salah to get away from the defense and break through. So I don't think we breaking down. We've struggled with this in the past, trying to break down deep blocks. So we need to figure it out. To your question, is he? I think he'll be. It seems daft to even utter this sentence. He'll be given time. He's got enough credit in the bank.
He's got to be.
And people saying that he's been found out. I don't know. Too early to say that. One thing that does surprise me is that one thing the club's always done really, really well, I think, is buy the players that we need. We've always bought players to deliberately slot into our system really well. And it's not to slag Wirtz off. I just don't know where we intended to fit him in, because it does feel like he should take Soberslai's place. And that's crazy. Take nothing away from, I mean, Wirtz is a fantastic footballer, but you're not going to move Soberslai. I think we tried to at first, moving Soberslai around, but he's been such an important player for us. So I don't know where Wirtz. I don't know if Slot foresaw a change of system and that system's not really working. It does feel as well like we've all talked about this. The whole strategy of the Premier League seems to have shifted to a much more long ball set play, a little bit more old style English football, and maybe we've been left behind a little bit with that because we're not playing that style and that kind of football we're struggling to compete against. But
it's like it's isn't it? There's just so many new players there. Like you said, I don't think we can't say convincingly that it's Slot's fault. I think at the moment they've just got so many new players like that.
Sure.
Josh Williams was saying the same thing. You know, was he responsible for buying those players? So there's just so much to work there. But yeah, I'm just it's just so hard thinking about the Liverpool and the defense. And I'm just looking now. just last thing to say, because I really am going to have a decision there about Van Dijk. But one thing I will say is that there has been a stark contrast between the home form and the away form. They have been much better for whatever. I mean, I don't normally look into that too much. It's usually not, but it's been going on for a long time now, like a very long time. And they have been much better at home. I'm just looking, and it's like trying to think about these fixtures coming up. But the next 8 fixtures, 5 of them are at home, and of those home games, it's Forest, Sunderland, Brighton, Wolves, and Leeds. So that's, I mean, the fixtures really are, and even the away games are West Ham, Leeds, and Spurs. So, yeah, I think the fixtures are going to swing me there, really.
Yeah, if we can't turn it around with those fixtures, we're in trouble. We really are in trouble. I'm confident we will.
I'm sure you will. It's just whether that's coupled with clean sheets, not just winning games. But yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, we better let Jossy go to bed because it's about 1 in the morning. Where
yeah.
It's 10 to 1.
Remembering that Jossy's joining us from Dubai. I myself, Jossy, would have collapsed by now in your situation. I'm just going to ask one final question because I was scouring the chat to see if there's anything that we'd missed actually. And Danny, I should probably throw this in front of you and then we'll call it a day. Yeah, but who was it? Ahmad has been suggested as a obviously a I mean, it's short term, of course, with AFCON. Fixtures are obviously lovely, and he's 6.3 million. Is there any justification for going there, especially if you were sort of fishing in that kind of Szoboszlai kind of price bracket, I suppose?
No, I don't think so. No, not Ahmad. I mean, he's a great player and he can do great things, but not with the combined AFCON upcoming. It's just, I mean, I expect him to go back to right wing back. You would hope these fixtures again, that Boomo, because he's messed around with that a little bit on the last few of the harder fixtures, which again has been annoying because the combination of Ahmad and Boomo is fantastic. So I expect him to go back to that in these good run of fixtures now, which will be good for United, hopefully. But it is just at the end of the day, it's a right wing back with a few games left before he goes to AFCON, so wouldn't be for me.
There you go. Water poured on that exciting.
I'm trying to keep it swift. I mean, I don't hate it. I'm not trying to be harsh. It's just that
no, it's fine. It's our good friend Eno who will do it anyway. So don't worry about it. You know what he's like. We live vicariously through you, Eno. But there we go. Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you for joining us as ever, Jossy. And I know that you'll be back at some point later in the season, no doubt, with us as well. We do always enjoy having you on. And more importantly, go and get some sleep.
Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure, and good luck for the week.
Yes, you too. Brilliant. Thanks. Well, enjoy and good luck with your game weeks.
Nice one, Jossy. See you, boys.
Right. See you, boys.